Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live stream. Today it is the 19th of April 2025. My name is CareyHolzman, and today we're going to talk to you about just basic computer maintenance tips using no third-party utilities. Those days should be long behind us now, and we're just trying to get everybody to catch up with the modern operating system from Windows or from Microsoft, and why those third-party utilities, if they were necessary, Microsoft has already sort of cloned them, we'll call it that, and built it into the operating system. One thing you'll find is Microsoft never has offered a registry cleaner. They don't do it. And if you ever use a third-party utility, then I want you to listen to this very carefully. Very carefully. Are you listening? If a third-party utility recommends you back up your registry before you do that function, they're basically telling you this could break your computer. Are you aware of any Microsoft utility that has that, I don't know what you want to call that, oh, by the way, before you run this Microsoft utility that comes from Microsoft, you should back up your registry first? I don't recall ever seeing that from the official source because, well, I'll let you come to the conclusion why that is that way, but it's important you understand what you're seeing on your screen. And backing up the registry means that company is admitting this could cause harm to your computer. All right? They're just not phrasing it that way. So anything like Revo Uninstaller or CCleaner, any of these tools, which were very useful, you should not need them anymore. Now, I've heard people talk about being unable to install something, and therefore they required Revo. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Most of the time when you can't uninstall something, the cure is to simply reinstall it again on top of itself and then run through the factory uninstaller for that application. If that reinstall still doesn't work, you've got bigger problems on your hands. And what Revo will do is it'll force it out with brute force and leave a big hole where that program used to be. And that leaves Windows damaged. Now, how that damage affects you and when, I can't predict. It could be 3 years from now. Could be 3 seconds after it's done. If you follow the correct procedures, the likelihood of suffering any of these consequences now, soon, or in the far future are very, very minimal compared to what the risks are you're taking. I don't think people really understand the risk. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not your boss. But I'm telling you, in my line of work, if you worked for me and you did that, you'd get warned never to do it again. If you did that at any corporation in America that I'm aware of, any large corporation, you're probably not going to be there very long. So if we follow the rules, all right, look, you can break rules, all right? And you might get away with it for a while. But eventually, if you continue to break the rules, you're going to get caught. There's going to be a consequence to it. The rules aren't there in this particular scenario to maintain control. And if they are there for that reason, there's another reason. And that is to make sure you have a good experience with the product. So the minute you start monkeying around with the product and you break the product, then you blame the product manufacturer, which is usually the way this goes online. Everybody's a victim. Everybody didn't do anything wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. I'm telling you, if you don't engage in that activity, then you don't get the consequences, or the consequences are significantly less likely. So if you're not speeding, you're less likely going to get a speeding ticket. If you're not shoplifting, you're likely not going to get busted for shoplifting. Somebody can make a mistake, but you'll know, hey, I'm in the right here. You won't have to be just pointing a finger. You'll have evidence. On top of that, these utilities, they're selling you an idea, right? They're selling you this idea that you're going to do well by your system when there's really no evidence that proves that. Whether it's a system maintenance utility, tune-up utility, when it's coming from a third party, they're trying to sell you something. And the only way you're going to buy it is by convincing you it has value. I'm not here to promote anything. I'm not here to promote Windows. I'm not here to promote any other alternative. I'm simply here to show you how a professional in this line of work that's held liable, accountable, I can be sued, I can go out of business, and why I will no longer use those utilities, because it's not worth the risk to me. That might be worth the risk to you. Maybe you like it when your system breaks. Maybe you like troubleshooting. Don't stop what you're doing. Okay? Don't do it for me. I'm providing this for you. Those system utilities did have a purpose, and they used to be helpful. But today, Microsoft has absorbed anything that was useful in those utilities and baked it right into Windows. And I'm just here to show you those are all safe utilities to run. There is no registry cleaner from Microsoft. And if you'd like to guess why, the answer should be pretty obvious. It's a very unwise thing to do to a modern Windows 10 or 11 computer, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. All right, so these are best practices that I want to share with you from a professional perspective, and I want to emphasize, if you were to break somebody else's computer and they paid you to fix that computer, they can take you to court and sue you for damages in the United States of America. Those are the terms I play by. Those are the rules of the game. If you're playing by nobody's rules, you probably won't see much benefit to this video. But the rules are there to protect us. The rules are there to ensure every customer gets the same treatment, the same quality of work, and the company absorbs no more risk. Geek Squad got in trouble for using third-party utilities unlicensed that they were downloading for free, using for free, and then charging customers and profiting from. And so companies like CCleaner went after Geek Squad. This was years ago. Said, all the money you've made from using our free utility that you didn't license and give us any money, we want the money you made, all of it, plus penalties, consequences. It's never going to happen to a home user other than your system breaks, and then you're probably going to blame Microsoft for it. So there are reasons to blame Microsoft. I am not 100% behind everything Microsoft does, but this is a gross injustice online where people understand rituals and they don't understand why these processes are recommended or not, or that these processes even exist. So what I thought I would do is give you a real live example here during a live unscripted video. We're trying to put together the shelving unit that's going to go behind me, and that means we're going to put some computers on display back here. And I want to make sure, because these computers have been sitting around, I want to fire them up, make sure they all work. Even though they're just display computers, I might as well just check on them. Now, a computer that sits at, like this one has, for months without being plugged in or turned on, is probably in better shape than a computer you've been running for months and haven't done any maintenance on. Because you're going to have a buildup of temp files and Windows Update files, and you're going to have a buildup that occurs from using the computer. It's a natural thing that happens. These computers have been off, sitting unplugged, so they're going to be missing a bunch of updates. That's it. But I'm going to walk you through all the maintenance, and you can do all of this for free. It's all licensed from Microsoft. It's all free, and it's all safe to use. Now, that being said, there's no excuse to never have a backup or not to maintain a backup on a regular basis. We don't back up because this might break something. We back up because something might break without any sort of warning or expectation. You just were using it, you didn't do anything special. See, people have it in their mind online that if I'm about to do something, I should back up the computer first. That is a flawed thought process from non-technical people. A technical person who understands how computers work will tell you, you never trust the computer, regardless. You back up your data because of what you don't know. You don't know when it's going to crash. Just because you're making a change doesn't mean it's going to crash. Just because you're not making a change doesn't mean it's going to not crash. So we make a backup either way. When I get in the car, I don't expect to be in a car accident. I keep car insurance on the car because you never know when it's going to happen. It may not be your fault. Just wrong place, wrong time, nothing you can do. On the other hand, if I'm taking a road trip, I don't go, oh, I better put car insurance on the car because I'm going to take a long road trip. Oh, I'm just about to change something on the car, I better get insurance on. That is the most bizarre, illogical way to think, and computers are very logical things. So for me, being a person that understands computer logic, I'm having a very difficult time understanding the average person's reasoning with treating a computer as though it were emotional or predictable. They are predictable only in the sense that they do what you tell them to do if everything's working right. But when things aren't working right, it's sort of like predicting when a light bulb's going to burn out. Light bulb's been working great for years. Or maybe you just put it in yesterday. You don't know. You don't know why. You simply replace the bulb, and hopefully you have spare bulbs around your home for such an occasion, that you're not just sitting in the dark. I mean, I realize I'm talking to some people who are listening to their smoke alarms chirp because they can't be bothered to change a battery. I understand some of you are out there, and if that's how you want to live, it's your choice. But the minute I hear one chirp, I'm changing that battery out, because it's never going to get better. Until somebody gets off their butt and does something, that thing is going to chirp forever. So if you're okay with it, I mean, enjoy your background music. But for me, I want to nip that in the bud, because all you're doing is procrastinating. And even if it's not driving you crazy, it's very inconsiderate to have anybody over your house and you can't be bothered to do that. And you sort of impose that upon them. They don't want to be rude, but on the other hand, they might be wincing every time it hears. It's like torturing somebody. And if you care about them, then don't do it for you. You do it for them. Besides, it's a smoke detector. Well, I'm not expecting a fire, so that doesn't matter if the battery's low. This is the logic I'm dealing with online, and I'm trying to convey to you another perspective, both from the way I see it, the way you see it, and the way the internet sees it. Okay, so I'm not implying that any of you are the internet, but I know some of you are. I don't know which of you, but just statistically, it's very likely. So for that reason, we're going to go through this, and I'm going to show you some very basic things that you can do. You can follow right along with me with Windows 10 and Windows 11, and I'm going to show you very easily how this is done. Now, this can take some time, but it's legit, it's free, and it's no excuse to not make a backup regardless. You should have already made your backup long before I even started today's video, or you knew I was making one, because today is another day. That's why you make a backup. All right, so at least if you care about your stuff. We're going to plug this in, turn it on. I can't remember the last time I turned this on. It may not be as far behind as I think it is, but honestly, I can't remember. We do have the build video up for this, by the way. This is our Cube PC. Let me plug this in real quick and fire it up, and then we'll say hello to everybody joining us in the chat. Hope you're having a great Saturday. We're enjoying some cooler weather here in Phoenix before the heat of summer hits us for the next 5 months, so I'm trying to savor it as much as possible. All right, let's get it plugged in. Let's see, we'll get, normally I save power for last, but I'll be a rebel today. Make sure the power supply is off and plug our power supply in. The other thing, a computer that sits is not synchronizing with the internet time servers. So likely the time will be, if the time and date were set correctly when this was turned off and put away, just like a clock on the wall, it's going to lose or gain minutes because it's running off the battery on the motherboard. So when we turn this on, if we find out it's 10 or 15 minutes behind or forward, that's to be expected. That's a normal clock operation. The reason why computers keep the date and time so accurately is you're plugged into the internet and they're synchronizing with the internet time servers on a regular basis, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. But yeah, if you've got a computer that's been in storage, expect the clock to be off. And if it's been in storage a really long time, it will have drained the battery and it'll just reset to factory defaults. So that's another thing to consider. Some of those batteries are rechargeable. You have to leave them plugged in to recharge those batteries, even if the machine is off. So long as it's plugged in and the power supply is on, there's a little trickle power that goes through that. Other times it's just a standard alkaline 2032 battery and you just replace it. They don't last forever. They last longer if the computer is plugged in. They last less. Their life is shortened significantly if the computer is regularly left unplugged, because then you're depending on that battery more. Let's see, video and network cables. Let's grab those real quick, plug those in. So HDMI goes back here, and our Ethernet cable back here. Now this motherboard does have Wi-Fi, but I don't like to use that on camera. Finally, I need a keyboard and a mouse, which, oh, they're right here. I prepared myself today. We'll turn this on, and I'll just plug a keyboard in right there. Should be fine. Turn the keyboard on, and let's hit the power button here. Oh, got to turn the power supply switch on, and then hit the power button here. And if it all works, it'll light up. There it goes. Okay, so with that working, we'll go over to camera 2, and let's make sure this is booting into Windows correctly. It is. And before I get into the chat and say hello to everybody, let me just jump over here. What do we got going on? We got a lot of stuff here. Looks like we're in 4K. Let's go to display and change that to 1080 so as I can reads it. 1920 by 1080. There we go. Now I should be able to see everything okay. Now the date and time down here still looks really accurate. But if for any reason this was out of date, it will auto-synchronize. Right now you can see we don't have an internet connection established here. It says no internet access. And we should, so then there it goes. It just took a minute. When it establishes that, it should do the date and time with regards to whatever period of time it's checking it, like with a certain amount of frequency, it automatically checks. But you can force it. You can right click and click adjust date and time. We can make sure that we are set for setting the time zone automatically, or we can turn that off and make sure we select that set time automatically. Where's my time zone? This one up here. Yeah, it's already set to Arizona. And then by turning the set time automatically off and back on, that forces the resynchronization, and your date and time will be updated simply by doing that. I don't recommend changing it manually. Too many people fat finger stuff, they don't pay attention, and you make it worse than it ever was. If you just give it permission to take care of itself, it'll do a much better job more consistently than any human being on the face of the earth. So just something to keep in mind there. What I want to do right now is just quickly hit Windows updates. This is a very important thing, especially to make sure that you may not have automatic updates turned on. Some people aren't getting them and they don't know they're not getting them. Don't trust the technology. You have to audit, you have to babysit it, you have to check on it from time to time just to verify it's doing everything it's supposed to be doing. So while that's running, and that could take a while, we're going to come back over here to camera 1 and we're going to say hello and start off our show today by saying welcome to all of our friends in green and in white and in blue joining us here in our chat room. Starting with Eddie Casanova saying hello. Mortant says hello. There's Iceman and Tony's RC, along with Patrick T and David Graham saying hello. Mark Baggett says hello. Ben Laird from Scotland says hello. Steve Chappelle saying good afternoon. Zub-Zero as well as Matthew Burton are joining us. Zoofster says hello, as does Gil Garcia and Brad Ravel, Frank Jimmy, Dazzle555, Bajan Guys joining us there in the chat room. John Kennedy says hello. Welcome in, John. There's Bernard C., John Williams, Dustin Fuller, and Rick Lakes. There's Lawn Dog and Marsman50 and Chris Garrett all saying hello. Martin Hogg there from Scotland says hello. Jeff H. and Alex Sasso say hello. Nick C. saying hello. $10 super chat from Chevy. Thank you, Chevy, for the $10 super chat. David Graham with a $2 super chat says, how do you keep your keyboard so clean? Well, I suppose you got to have clean hands. I don't know what else to say. Nothing else is touching the keyboards but my fingers. So wash your hands. I'm not sure. If we have a keyboard or anything sitting around here in the desert, it can get dusty. And I just take a microfiber cloth. Well, the keyboard is unplugged or turned off in the case of a wireless keyboard. A dry cloth. It doesn't have to be microfiber. It could be a washcloth. Paper towels don't work very well. And just wipe the dust off of it. You know, push the keys down. Look at it. So look clean, that's it. But the only thing touching the keyboard are your fingers. So if your keyboard's getting dirty, it's because your fingers are dirty. It's no different than your floors. If you're walking around barefoot and you're walking around outside and you're coming into the house and you're wondering why my carpet's so dirty or why there's marks on my floor, it's because you just tracked all that in on the bottom of your feet. Also, if you're eating or drinking anything, those crumbs are all going to go, crumbs you don't even realize. They're just coming down your chest, and potato chips, whatever it is, goes right into the keyboard. So it's just a bad habit to eat anything that could be crumbs or could drip anything into the keyboard. That's just not recommended. Let's see. Frank Jimmy says, is this a Rubik's Cube? No, it's a Carey's Cube. Yeah, I'm afraid the lighting is just, it's a little too bright. You can't really appreciate that. Let me see if I can darken it up a little bit here and show off that RGB. Let's try that. I'll leave it like that for a minute. That way, there's RGB going on down here along the edges. And I didn't put all the rest of the glass panels. This glass panel, I've got one, two, well, I've got at least two more of those to put on. But yeah, you'll notice it down here as well. And all of our buttons and stuff all right here, so from port I/O. And it needs some cable management, obviously, and I can put the glass panel down here as well. So it's a really nice, clean looking build. Of course, Mara is hanging out in the chat room, our channel administrator, there in blue. Bill Sony recommends the air dusters that we have, the USB chargeable air dusters. Those work really good to get crumbs and stuff out of crevices in between keys. You got to hold the keyboard upside down and spray it. But normally if it's just dust, you just wipe it down. If you have like a white keyboard and over time it has become dark from the oils on your skin, then simply turn the computer off, unplug the keyboard, get yourself some type of cleaner. It could be Windex and preferably a Q-tip, and clean every key. You don't have to take the keycaps off in most cases. Just simply rub the Q-tip around the key, and when the Q-tip starts looking really dirty, flip it to the other side, get the Q-tip wet with the cleaner. Windex works fine. And then after about 104 keys, it'll be clean again. It's a little tedious, but it didn't happen overnight, so spending a few minutes to clean it, no big deal. You should also know there are dishwasher-safe keyboards. You can buy dishwasher-safe antimicrobial keyboards. They're often used in hospitals and places like this, but they're still like 15, 20 bucks. They're not that expensive. And that way you just throw it in the dishwasher. Just don't put it on the heat dry and you'll be okay. Also, don't put it in the dishwasher if it's got batteries in it. That's just a bad idea. So rechargeable keyboards or keyboards that have batteries, don't put them in the dishwasher. The antimicrobial dishwasher safe keyboards are usually wired keyboards, and they will be advertised as dishwasher safe. Okay, so with that, we'll keep going here. Alma recommends not sneezing on your keyboard. You know, it's just good societal practice to not sneeze on anything other than perhaps in your elbow or to cover your mouth, because the overspray, let me put it to you this way. It's the best way I could give it to you. If you're driving in your car and somebody's harassing you, There's road rage or something. Or, you know, what do people do? They honk the horn, they give them a sign language symbol. Well, if you're moving forward, should I think about this? Because so many of you people do this. Again, I don't know if it's any of you, but you have no concept of the people around you. There's like no consideration. It's like you're on the road all by yourself. And look, if you are, that's fine. But when your car is in motion and you decide, I want to clean my windshield, and you hit the little windshield wiper, what do you think happens? Where does the water go? When you're driving, you're in motion, you hit the wash my window button, the water squirts up on the windshield, and where does it go? Over your car and onto the car behind you. Even onto the car beside of you. You'll be like, what, is it raining? What happened? If their windows are down, if their sunroof is open, how is that any different from sneezing on somebody? How is it any different from sneezing on something? So out of consideration for your things, for other people, get a tissue, use your hand, use your elbow. It's a lot less mess to clean up later if more than a sneeze comes out. Okay. That was a pleasant topic. Let's see, how's this progressing? We got updates? Oh, yeah, we got updates. Install. And we'll let that continue back over here for one. Okay, so in any event, again, welcome in everybody. How long would a keyboard take to dry? It depends on where you live and what the requirements of the keyboard manufacturer are. If you buy a dishwasher safe keyboard, then it should run even when it's wet, right? Because that would imply it's got some waterproofing in it. But you'll have to read what the manual from that manufacturer says, because they may not all agree. When we used to wash keyboards, when I worked at a big corporation, we had a big ultrasonic cleaner. We'd fill it with simple green diluted with water, and that was it. And then we'd soak the keyboards. These were the old school wired PS2 keyboards back in the 90s. And about 2 out of 10 would fail. They just wouldn't survive the cleaning. But when you've got a company with thousands of employees, as employees leave and equipment gets changed, we don't want to buy a new keyboard for every employee. So we clean the keyboards. That was part of the IT department's job. So we had a metal tub that plugged into the wall that vibrated. It's called an ultrasonic cleaner. Simple green and water. That was your dilution. I don't remember if it was 3-to-1, whatever the dilution was. And those would sit in there for like, I don't remember, maybe an hour. Now I live in Phoenix, and in the summertime it's over 110 degrees a lot of days, Fahrenheit. So what we would do is take those keyboards out, put them outside by the side of the building, and stack them up like this, and let the water drain out in the heat of the sun. And then maybe a few hours later, we'd turn them around this way to get any water that puddled up to drain out that way. And by the next day, if we're having temperatures over 100 Fahrenheit, by the next day they're dry. And we plug them in and we test them. And we test every key on the keyboard. You have one of those software things that shows every key you press, and it verifies shift and control and alt. And if they pass, they went back into the stack to be redistributed. If they didn't pass, they went into the recycle bin. And about 2 out of 10 would not pass. But those keyboards would go in nasty and they'd come out like brand new. And that's been a thing for over 30 years. We've been doing that. Today, they do make keyboards specifically that are dishwasher safe. Just go to Amazon and look, dishwasher safe keyboard. There's many to choose from. And with regards to drying, some don't need to be dried. So if you're not in Arizona, let's say it's a colder, more humid place, I would set it somewhere dry and warm, like a garage. Once again, I'd leave it on an angle, making sure the water can drip out, and leave it for the day. The next day, I'd turn it the other way and leave it for the day. and the next day I'd plug it in and use it. That's a total of 3 days. That's if you're extra cautious. And nothing new about that, by the way. You could probably search on YouTube or Google and find some tips where people have done that and have shown it. But there's no guarantee your keyboard's going to work after that unless it is specifically advertised as being dishwasher safe. Otherwise, it's a risk. But keyboards are inexpensive anyway, so again, you don't want to do that with keyboards that have batteries, like these are wireless keyboards. We would keep these out of the washing machine. Okay, let's take a look at our progress over here. I'm going to keep bouncing back and forth. This is a very important step, and you should not assume you have all your updates. Absolutely not. And especially when we look down at the updates that don't come in automatically, that's your optional advanced right here. I click on advanced options. Right here it says optional updates, 0 available. I want to see 0. You don't get these automatically, okay? So you can see we're missing quite a few. You might be missing quite a few too. How would you know if you didn't check? Remember, I have liability. Customers expect me to solve problems. They shouldn't have to tell me how to do my job. So if I'm doing maintenance on their computers, it is implied that I am checking this. Just because the customer doesn't say anything to me, even if the customer does say, oh, I keep up with all my updates, I still don't believe them either. I don't believe it until I see it with my own eyes, because if I miss it, that's going to be a callback. You understand? That's going to make me look like I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, well, you told me you did that, so I didn't check it, is a terrible excuse to use. Just check it. It takes 2 minutes. Now, if it's going to take longer than 2 minutes, it's because stuff is missing. Okay, that's the point. All right, we'll go ahead and let that finish. We'll reboot, and then I'm going to show you some of the regular maintenance techniques that I use that are built into Windows, no third-party utilities. If we're using any utilities, they're coming from Microsoft. Is that a Microsoft shill thing? Does that mean I'm somehow standing in defense of Microsoft? I'm standing in defense of your reliability and your security. I'm standing in defense of your wallet from unnecessarily spending money on tools that have psychologically manipulated you into believing they actually help you, to separate you from your money. That's what I'm here to protect. These tools from Microsoft are free. They're either built into Windows or you can get them from the PC store, and Microsoft store. And on top of that, who would you trust better when it comes to a system utility? The people who made the system or the people who made the utility? These are two different people. There's a comedian named Ismo, and he says, you ever heard the expression where somebody doesn't like something and they say like, if they can put a man on the moon, then why can't they make a quiet leaf blower? The reason for that is the people who make the leaf blowers and the people who put people on the moon, these are different people. One might argue that if the people who put people on the moon were the ones making the leaf blowers, they probably could make a quiet one. So if Microsoft is making the operating system, then who knows better what needs to maintain, how to maintain it without functional damage to millions, hundreds of millions of users around the world, where the impact and the consequence of screwing that up is going to harm your PR. It's going to harm your cost of support. It's going to harm your reputation. There's a lot at stake, much more so because it's Microsoft. More people use a Microsoft product than use a CCleaner or any other third-party utility. So for that reason, I am recommending, I'm not saying there's anything, I'm not here to put down the third-party utilities. I'm here to tell you they're ornamental with potential damage. They're optional, that people don't require. It's a choice, not a need. It's a want, not a have, like must have. It is elective. It is something you voluntarily choose to do to yourself that is not a requirement. Okay, that's all I'm trying to make it clear. You do have a choice, and there are, in my opinion, better, more reliable tools than trusting a third-party utility. So as long as we stick with the manufacturer should know better than anybody else how to maintain that, especially when they have so much more to lose. And since you've already paid for that, why would you pay for something else that's already built in here, except that you didn't know? And that's all I'm here to share with you. What you do with this information is entirely up to you, and let me be clear on that. You do with this information what you'd like. But this is how I do it in the professional world, where I get paid and held accountable, and I wouldn't do it any differently for you. Whether you're paying me or not, everybody gets treated the same. Now, if I look back over here just to see our progress before I go back over to the chat, it looks like one more update there, and then we'll come back. Matthew Burden said he dropped CCleaner after Windows XP because it just creates problems more than it solves. Well, again, if it's wanting to recommend you back up your registry, any piece of software that says before you run this, would you like to back up the registry, your registry, or back up, make a system restore point? Where does Microsoft ever do that? That's something you see in Revo Uninstaller. It's something you see in CCleaner. It's something you see in Glary Utilities. It's something you see in like Iolo System Mechanic, if that thing's even made anymore. That's your warning. They're basically admitting this could break your system. Now, if your system is running fine and you don't have any complaints, and you think you're just performing maintenance to make it better, and you see that warning, they're telling you right up front, if your machine's fine, you're risking damaging it. That's why we recommend backing up the registry or making a system restore point. You have to interpret the words on the screen correctly, because if you don't, well, the consequences are yours. Utilities that encourage you to back up your registry or make a system restore point before running that utility are utilities you should not be using. That's my opinion, and that is the opinion I carry forward, that I have learned, well, I've learned it the hard way, and especially in the corporate world where there are policies and procedures that if you look at it, you go, well, that's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's not stupid. It does make sense. Just keep going down that path and watch what happens. And if it's just your computer, that's fine. But if it's 1,000 computers you've worked on, and now you're responsible because a Windows update won't go on any of them, or something else happens, guess whose fault that is? So, yeah. Bill says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, here's the thing. Maintenance, preventive maintenance is a very good thing if it's truly preventive. But if what we're doing is causing problems, then that's now potentially harmful maintenance. Maintenance is not maintenance. There's two different kinds of maintenance. There's the reasonable, spend a few minutes now so you don't have to spend a lot of time later. And then there's the unreasonable, let's risk everything in the hopes that we're going to get something back that's worth it. Or let's spend 3 hours on preventive maintenance to avoid a 1 hour problem. That doesn't make any sense. It's just faster to deal with the problem if that problem occurs. Seeing so much anxiety now, even places that report news, hardware websites, that talk about, well, this could happen. This might the news used to be, here's what has happened. The news is now partially becoming, here's what could happen. Here's what might happen. Like recently, Fire Stick from Amazon may no longer be using Android. That's not news, that's gossip. Because you could just as easily write an article that it may not happen, That's not news. News is something that's happened or is absolutely going to happen. But until it happens, it's conjecture and gossip. Well, here's how the tariffs could raise the price of an iPhone. Well, what are you talking about? They're scaring you and they're selling you anxiety, and the internet is clicking on it every single time, and they are cashing in. Why? How many times are you going to fall for the same trick over and over and over again? How many times are people on, not you, but people on the internet going to keep going around in circles? They keep going to the bank. The story keeps changing. But if it says might, if, could, that's gossip. That's not news. And you know what? If they called it gossip, if they called it an editorial, I'm fine with it. But don't put it next to the actual things that happened and say this is all the news today. They're running out of stories. They have to fill every single day up with new stories. They have to add a certain number of new stories. If you don't have one, make one up. That's the rule of the news media in America today. And you can tell the difference. Just look at the headline. If it says might, if, or could, it's not news. So don't let it get to you. Don't let it keep you up at night. Because the devil's advocate is might, if, or could in whatever side of it they're looking at, like worst case, could also just never even happen at all. Equally, what it would be could or if or might not even happen at all. Okay, that's equally opposite. But they very rarely paint a fair picture there. They want to get your click, and it's working, by the way. All right, so we're going to hit restart now, and that's how these system utilities are sold. The system utilities are sold that something could happen to your system if you don't run our utility, or your system could speed up if you don't run our utility. No. It's just not in Windows 10 or 11. If anything, whatever's wrong with your system, you're likely going to make it worse. There's a potential you could make it better, but to suggest that that potential is greater than the potential of making it worse is delusional. In my experience, a far greater chance of making it worse or having no difference noticeable whatsoever than there is of it actually doing anything useful. So, companies like CCleaner, they're stuck. They spend all this time and money researching, developing a tool that was very useful for Windows years ago, but Windows no longer needs it. It's not as beneficial as it used to be. So what do? They just close up the job and say, everybody, you're out of a job. Have a nice day. Who would do that in their right mind? We've got all this money and time invested in research. What are you going to do? Keep telling people they need it. We have bills to pay. The rent is still due. The employees need to get paid. They've got families to feed. You understand? Because the right thing to do depends on where you're looking at it. There's no right answer here. If you work for CCleaner, the right thing to do is keep CCleaner around. It's in everybody's best interest at CCleaner. If you're trying to genuinely and honestly help people like a charity, the right thing to do would be go into another line of system software, maybe backup software, something that everybody can use that isn't so conditional. It might help, it might make it worse, it might do nothing at all. But they're not operating based on anything other than making a profit, because that's the way that they do business with the building they rent. That building is making a profit, the building owner. The electricity they pay for, the electricity companies make it a profit. The employees that work there aren't doing it for free. They need to pay their bills too. So understand their position. They're kind of stuck. So in the meantime, that's their problem. It's not your problem. That's the way I see it anyway. And I believe that's exactly what's happened. Are these utilities that have been around for years that are no longer necessary? They're just coming up with another way to sell it to you. Put it in a different package. I was at the grocery store, speaking of this, and they, Frito-Lay, the folks who make potato chips, potato crisps, they brought back a package of potato chips that I used to eat as a kid called Munchos. It's in a bright red foil bag. Stands out. All the other bags kind of look alike. Munchos really stand. Oh my gosh, I remember those when I was a kid. So I started buying them, and they're as good as I remember. And I'm so glad they brought them back. And it's been that way now for about 10 years. I'm in the grocery store the other day, and I see like Cheetos branded potato crisps. Now in the United States, you don't often see the word potato crisp. It's usually a potato chip. And there is an FDA rule requiring that potato chips are basically slices of potato. Potato crisps are like a mashed potato that's reformed. So like Pringles would be a potato crisp. And it says so on the can. Very few people notice in America. Munchos, you can tell by looking at their texture, they're reconstituted? They're taking like mashed potato, and the shapes aren't all the same like with Pringles, but they're bumpy and they're clearly not a slice of potato. And I'm looking at the picture on the bag of the Cheetos potato crisps, and I see the word crisps, and I see the bag of Munchos. One bag looks like any other bag of potato chips. It's a yellow bag, nothing special about it. It's a picture of the chips or the crisps on the front. The other bag, the Munchos, is a bright red, shiny foil bag, picture of the crisps on the front. Same company, both are on the same aisle. One's at the bottom of the aisle, one's on the eye level. These look exactly the same. So I had to buy them and compare them. They're exactly, it's rebranding. They're taking the same old product, and they're putting it into a different package. That's all that's changed. And sometimes that's all that needs to be done. So somebody looking at the Munchos going, oh, that's something my dad would eat. Now they see new product. Ooh, what's this? Let me try it. Hey, these are pretty good. And now that's how you get another generation interested that has stereotyped or become prejudicial against the packaging, because that's what uncool people eat. My parents aren't cool or whatever. But yeah, when you open the bag, it's the same product. This is marketing. This is manipulation. It's in a way deception, but they're not violating any rules by doing it. When you go down the cereal aisle, here in America, the cereal is mostly 3 companies. There's a whole aisle from floor to ceiling of all these different cereals. But look who makes them. Post, General Mills, and there's one other one. And they're just kind of competing against themselves. Same with detergent, laundry detergent, dishwashing detergent. It's mostly the same 2 or 3 companies. So it's giving you the impression as the consumer that you have all this choice, but really you're just buying from one of 3 companies. I don't know. There's just a little deceit in that from my perspective, but the company's name is on the package. I especially enjoy when I see Detroit-style pizza in the frozen food section, and I look on the back, and it's made by a company in Cleveland, Ohio, which happens to have the exact same address as DiGiorno's Pizza Factory. It's not made in Detroit. That's strike 1. It's made in Cleveland. That's strike 2. And it's made by DiGiorno. You're out. That's just wrong. I'm sorry. I have a problem with that. You got a problem with a lot of things, Carey. I do. Just trying to set the world right, man. All right, let's jump back over here real quick. Now, you may get screens like this from time to time, especially after a Windows update, that want you to back up. Now, that's not because of what you're about to do. You've already done it. Okay? Whatever happened that triggered this has already occurred. So it's coming up and it's saying, you should be backing up your computer. Not because you're about to do something, just that you're about to use the computer. You should have a backup. Now, you don't have to use this kind of a backup, but you should have a copy of important data. That's all a backup is. It's just a copy. So right now, I'm just going to click opt out of backup because I like to use Acronis when I use backups, or you can use the system imaging tool that we learned with help from our chat room is already still built in to Windows 11. It's going to tell you again, backup is recommended. And once again, it's not because of what you're about to do. We're not about to make any changes like CCleaner or Revo uninstaller. This is just because you should. You understand the difference behind the motivation here? We don't know if you're going to get a virus. We don't know if you're going to get a power outage that corrupts your drive, or your drive's going to fail, or someone's going to steal your computer, or you're going to spill something. I mean, I can go on for hours and hours and hours. All the ways people lose their data. But the people who lose their data all have one thing in common. None of them expected it. So here, this is your friendly reminder from Microsoft. Okay? You could say skip for now. It's fine. It's your choice. Don't say you didn't know. If we want to do the old style system backup, what we learned was we could go to Control Panel, right? I just start typing Control Panel, and right up here under Backup and Restore, Windows 7, it says, click on that, and do a system image, create a system image. And you can put that onto an external drive, onto your NAS, onto a flash drive, if you've got, enough free space on the external drive for the amount of data you have. Not for the size of the drive you have, but for how much space you're using on the drive. You must have that much space or more to make that backup. Okay, so system utilities. Once again, we would continue to revisit Windows Update and verify that we have all of our updates. And the reason we want to do that first is these updates that we're waiting to download, these are files. Where do these files go? They go on your hard drive. Where? Tucked away in a system directory for you to keep your fingers off of. Then where do they go? Nowhere. You have to manually delete them. Well, how do I manually delete them if I don't know where they are? Using the utilities built into Windows. Why doesn't Windows do this automatically? That is a question for the ages. However, you can set Windows to maintain most of it automatically, but it is not turned on by default. It's called Storage Sense. So since I can see we're all up to date here, if I come down to this little search window and type in storage space sense, is it going to bring me there? It says turn on storage sense here, and then we have storage settings here. Either way, should take us there. So I'll click on storage settings, and then you'll see this option, storage sense. Now my Windows 10 optimizer, because this was introduced in Windows 10, turns this feature on, but it is not on by default. I like it to run once a month, but you could have it run every day, every week, or just wait until you have to use it and respond. I think this is a foolish option, but that's just me. You can't run it too much. You know what I mean? Like if you want to run it every day, it's fine. I set it to once a month. And then I tell it to delete files in my recycle bin because customers don't. I had to wait for 90 minutes one time for Recycle Bin to empty out 2.1 million files. So I will set this to say, look, if there's items in the Recycle Bin that have been in that Recycle Bin untouched for no less than 30 days, so 31 days or longer, just go ahead and empty everything that's been in there that long, get it out of there automatically, don't bother me. Now, with the downloads folder, that's different. People may be downloading documents and photos that they want to keep, and they don't know enough to move them out of there and put them somewhere more permanent, which would be like the My Documents folder or the Pictures folder. So they leave it in there. So I never empty the downloads folder. I'll look at it manually. And what I'm looking for are the parentheses with the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, because customers always re-download the same thing over and over, and they can't find it. And they keep downloading it, and they can't find it. They download it, they can't find it. And I mean instantaneously. They'll download it 10 times in 3 minutes, and they don't know where it is. And then they finally find it, and it never occurs to them they've got 9 other exact copies taking up space on their drive in their downloads folder. So when I'm doing maintenance on a customer's downloads folder, I look to see what the file sizes are, and if I see the parentheses 1, 2, or 3 in here, because that would imply there's duplicates. And if I can't see it, I just grab up here so I can see the entire name, In this case, it's a bunch of folders, but the individual files that they download will have a parentheses 1, parentheses 2, parentheses 3, and they'll all be the exact same size downloaded on the same day. So I get rid of the duplicates and just keep one, because I know I'm not deleting any customer data that's important. They have 10 copies. Now look, that's not a backup. The copy of the data needs, if it's important and you're backing it up, you've got to put the copy somewhere off the computer, somewhere like an external drive or the cloud-based storage, or you email it to yourself, or you back it up to a flash drive. You put a copy somewhere else. Multiple copies of the same file on the same drive are just as damageable and losable, as susceptible to loss, I guess is the right English, than having one copy on the same drive. Now in this case, I don't want any of this. I'm going to hit Control A, that highlights everything, and I'm going to press delete and get that all out of there because it's my stuff and I downloaded all that from the web. If there's anything I want to grab again, I'll go get it from the web again. I don't need to be a library when the internet is my library. I don't need to store all this stuff myself, not anymore. The internet stores it for you. Furthermore, a lot of what you saw there were drivers and software that likely have been updated since then. So by holding on to it, I'm actually harming myself potentially by installing an older version. One of the other things I want to do when I'm doing maintenance is I want to look in the device manager. So I right click on the start menu, I go to the device manager, and I look to see if there's any problems in here. I see everything looks fine. No problems. Wonderful. People were asking me if I'm checking secure boot. Well, that's the thing I need to start checking now. So we'll type in MS info, or just as far as you need to go before system information becomes a suggestion. You can click on that and then look right down about in the middle here. Secure boot state is what it's called, is on, and our boot BIOS mode is UEFI. These are two things I want to make sure for Windows 11 and needs to be added to my routine. Okay. Nothing here is specific to me as far as like version numbers, system name. Some people are like, oh, you're showing off your product key. No, I'm not. It's absolutely, you know, there might be like serial number type information that's hashed out here, but you can't use it. There's no benefit to any viewer to see that. So, you know, we could publicly display this. Anyway, if the system is supposed to have 32 gigs of RAM, then I'm going to right click again on the start button, and this time go to system, which is different than system information. I know this is information about the system. That's Microsoft. I want to make sure I'm seeing the right amount of RAM being recognized, because that's an early indicator of a problem. And, you know, of course, I very rarely see any issue with the CPU. Sometimes I'm just curious what it says. Now, the other thing is this has Windows 11 23H2. And it did not offer us 24H2. Well, eventually, you're just not going to get any more updates. Like if you had Windows 11 22H2, updates aren't going to work for you anymore, because Microsoft doesn't support it. So then you have to manually put on 24H2, and we would do that using the Windows 11 Installation Assistant, or just be patient. It will eventually get offered to you from Windows Update. Whenever I get these kind of settings like this bothers me. Microsoft wants to make Edge the default browser and set your search engine back to Bing. So if you've customized that, Microsoft will constantly harass you to put that back. It's another reason to use Chrome. But anyway, Windows 11 download will be our search, and download Windows 11 coming from Microsoft.com is the real thing. It's not a scamming site. Windows 11 Installation Assistant, download now. It's very quick, as you can see. I click on the download and click yes, and it's going to put something installed in our computer. But it says we have to see if your computer is capable of running Windows 11. We don't know yet. We're going to determine that with another app. You think they would just build these two together, but it's Microsoft. Get the PC Health Check app. It's right up here. That's all you had to do is click on it. It's very small. Click once, and then accept the license agreement and install. And then it's going to open, right? So if I hit finish with that box checked, it'll start. We can close all this out because it's clutter. I'll hit the check now button and we'll see if there's any issue. This PC meets Windows 11 requirements. That's what the Windows 11 Assistant wanted to know. You would think this would be built into the Windows 11 Installation Assistant. But now that it's done that, now we tell to look again, refresh. How about now? Oh yeah, now you're good. Accept and install, and it's off to the races. It's that easy. It's going to take a while. It's going to download. It's going to install a whole new version. This isn't just an update. This is a whole new version of Windows 11. 22H2 is a whole new version from 21H2. 23H2 is an entirely new installation of Windows 11. 24H2 is also an entirely new installation of Windows 11. And coming this fall with 25H2, more of the same. Now, if we trusted that that was all just happening automatically, how would we know? You have to check. You have to use your eyes. It's still a computer. You're still a human. And if you trust this and you just believe in it, tell you what, you wouldn't be in my line of work, not for very long, because the things that aren't working often don't tell you. And the reason they don't tell you is because they're not working. All right, I'm gonna work myself up today. Wisconsin is known as the frozen pizza capital. I have no doubt that that's true. Mark Gaines joins us and says hello. Hey, Mark, welcome in. There's Ben Laird joining us from Scotland. Davis Parsons says hello. He says, Davis says, because I don't know what Microsoft is doing with my files, I download most of my files to an alternative directory. Certain files are downloaded into the downloads folder and it's cleaned out. Well, if you have the technical knowledge to know how to do that, I think it's great. I don't necessarily agree in the paranoia, but it's your business. The problem that I'm battling each and every day are people that don't understand how computers work. They don't care any more than they care about how their car works. They get in, they push the button to start the engine, they put gas in it, they drive. And that's as far as cars go, as far as their knowledge. You know, there's videos of people changing their car battery, and they can't figure out why the car won't start with a new battery. And it's because they didn't remove the little plastic insulator cap that new batteries are sold with to prevent them from shorting out against touching anything. And then when it's installed, you take the little plastic cover off and then you put your cable on. I mean, it's basic, simple knowledge. On the other hand, none of us were born knowing it. But a little research before you begin some new process, or pay somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? Like, do one or the other. But to just assume you're just going to put a battery in and put a cable on without any further information, without even so much as looking to see if there's anything you might know, leaves people scratching their head. So the father will come out and say, "What's the problem, son?" And the kid says, "I don't know why the car won't start. I just put the battery in." And the father says, "I think I see the problem." We all have to learn one way or another, and that's one way to learn. And that's often the way we had to learn back in the 80s. But today, especially when your phone is with you the whole time and it's like 30 seconds of your time, when people are like, "I'm locked in my Tesla, I can't figure out how to get out." Instead of calling 911, maybe just Google that using the same device you're calling emergency services with. Just maybe try that first. And if that doesn't work, and then emergency services doesn't think to do it either, and then the fire department shows up and they don't do it either. Wow. I don't know what to say. Let's just shatter the window like we do any other time, instead of actually learning that if you just push this or push that, the door opens. Crazy world. Let's do it the hard, most difficult, expensive way that takes the longest. And by the way, while you're sitting in your car waiting for the fire department to arrive, what else are you doing? You might as well just, let me look this up. You're just sitting there anyway. What are you doing? I'll just listen to my music for a while. What's happening? What's happening to people? I don't easily give up control like that. That's insane to me. I'll just wait for somebody else to deal with my problems. Said nobody in the 1980s who ever got a problem solved. Not unless you're paying for it. Let's see, how are we doing over here? Step 3 of 3. Oh, this isn't taking very long. It's a full install of Windows, but it's a fairly brand new build. We're talking about a 13500, 32 gigs of RAM. systems are so fast today. Yeah, when we're doing older or more budget machines, this obviously takes longer. William Lynn asking if anybody has received an error in Windows recovery environment with the latest Windows 24H2 cumulative update. I haven't, but if anybody else has, fair question. Greg wants to know my thoughts on thermal paste and thermal pads. Thermal pads are ideal if you're somebody who's taking your cooler off all the time. Like, you just can't leave stuff alone. Maybe you're a tinkerer, home lab, experimenting, and you don't want to have to keep cleaning up and reapplying thermal paste. The pads are typically not working as efficiently, but they can make the process of replacing a cooler, trying different experiments, much more efficient, much faster, without so much waste. When it comes to thermal material is designed to last the lifetime of the equipment. Most of your cooling is going to happen when you clear out heat sinks and fans of any debris, or radiators. They get clogged up. So when you get your air duster out and you dust all the debris, or in the case of a laptop, you get any hair or things that are blocked between the fan and the heatsink, that is going to be 95% of your cooling right there. If you then decide, well, I've got the laptop open anyway, I might as well change the thermal compound, you may see 1 to 3 degrees difference, or you may actually make it worse. If the manufacturer used a specialized compound like liquid metal, you'll never be able to put that on by hand as good as they can put it on by machine. When you put it on by hand, it'll oxidize within about a year, and it'll be worse than if you would have just left it alone. When it's applied by machine in a certain way that keeps the oxidation from occurring, it's intended to stay on for the life of the machine. So changing thermal compound is risky. The thermal materials themselves don't really make much difference in cooling. An expensive thermal compound such as Cryonaut is designed to never have to be changed. When you look at older, cheaper thermal compounds, you'll see they can get hard over time. They don't cool any worse or any better than Cryonaut. At least that's the conclusion here. It's that the people typically using Cryonaut are people that are changing it. When you're spending more, so you never have to replace it again. It'll stay moist and it won't dry out. That's what you're paying the extra for. But it's not marketed that way. You could buy the cheapest thermal material on the planet and the most expensive and put them side by side, and then come back and tell us what your results are. Keeping in mind your room temperature is constantly changing by a few degrees, so give it a 3 degree plus or minus for margin of error, and you're going to find any difference is negligible. Your biggest difference, the one that's worth your time, is the cheapest and easiest, which is simply clearing out all the dust and debris. All those computers that Dell and HP sell, do you know how many computers Dell and HP sold just in 2024? Hundreds of millions. We're talking over 10 million a month from each. That's over 20 million a month combined. And we're not talking about Acer, Asus, Samsung. We're just talking about Dell and HP. Do you suspect that the thermal material that's applied at the factory is having a negative impact on the performance of that computer? I mean, go ahead, prove it to me. You can't, because it doesn't. They don't make them that way because they don't want the machines coming back for repair. That's going to cost them more money when they're making this much money on the sale. They can't afford to have to keep replacing them. They're going to go out of business if they're spending more than they're earning. So they're going to put on exactly what it needs. It's the hobbyists, it's the home lab enthusiasts that like to tinker. Tinker away, man. If that's what you want to do, you're doing that because you want to. You absolutely don't have to. And that's where I stand on that. But when it comes to maintenance and blowing out the dust and debris, everybody should be doing that, regardless if it's HP or Dell or something you built yourself. And just get the dust and debris out of the heat sinks, out of the radiators. And that's going to make 95% of your cooling right there improved. And if you need to get that extra 5%, I don't know what world you live on where that matters, but Good luck with that. It's sort of like somebody spends a full day cleaning your house, and you notice one little shelf that has dust on it, and you're like, oh, you missed a spot. How do you react when I say, or anybody tells you, you missed a spot? What is your reaction to that? So the 99.9% that's clean, you didn't notice, but that 0.1% you want to point out my failure? That's effectively what you're doing when you're changing thermal compound. You might see a very teeny tiny bit of improvement. But your biggest improvement possible is making sure the fan, the heat sinks, the power supply especially. Power supply, how hot is your power supply? Why is it we don't talk about how hot power supplies get? Why don't we talk about the dust buildup in a power supply and how it affects your whole computer? Why is this not a thing online? Why is it so rare to find that information? I'd sooner clean out a power supply before I clean out a heatsink, at least on a desktop computer. So, you don't use that information how you will, but you should be worried about what you're not being told. It's great that people make these videos and they inform you, but what are they not telling you? Well, I'll give you an example. Power supply. How hot is it? How do you make it run cooler? What thermal compound should I use? And as far as components go, how important of a component is the power supply to the rest of the system? And how come we're not talking more about maintenance of that? Because it's the internet, I guess. So, yeah, I appreciate the question, and I hope it answers it. Ben Laird with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Ben. Anybody just joining us, you know, you can rewind this video. The DVR mode is enabled like any other video. You don't need to come in and ask what we've talked about before you got here. You use your mouse and you self-service, all right? Think of it like buffet. You're not being served here. You go and serve yourself, and that's why DVR mode is there. David Graham with a $2 super chat says, does it hurt a non-boot drive if it shows red? If what shows red? I don't understand. Where do you see red? The drive, is it glowing red? I don't understand. Where do you see red? Help me understand where you're seeing red. And we'll go from there. Let me jump back over to see how we're progressing along with our 24H2 install. All right, so as you can see, our progress completed has kind of slowed down. Once you hit about 70%, it slows down. It's not telling you like there's 5 minutes remaining. This is not a progression of time. This is a progression of how much work has gotten done. So if there was a bunch of easy work and prep work that got us to 70% quickly, that doesn't mean the remaining 30% are going to process at the same speed. But it does accurately mean that we are 82% of the way there, but it doesn't estimate the time. I appreciate that because usually the time estimates are wrong. This is never wrong. It's always accurate with how far along the process is. Some parts of the process are faster than others. That's why it's an accurate representation, and I like that for that reason. It's just not estimating or assuming. It's factual. I like factual. Oh, Bajin Guy says he's talking about when a drive says that it's so low on space that it's in red. If it's a spare drive, it's probably not that important. If you're a boot drive, though, you need room for your swap file to expand and grow. Your temp files from your internet browsing need somewhere to store. The Windows updates downloading in the background need somewhere to store. So if you're seeing red, that you're getting basically you're getting a low disk space warning. If it's a solid state drive, it could hinder the performance of the solid state drive. If it's a mechanical drive, it probably doesn't make much difference if it's a secondary drive and you're not writing temp files to it. So yes and no, depending on how you're using it. I'm going to make an assumption that your secondary drive is mechanical and you are not using it for your swap file or cache files. If that's the case, it's fine. If your secondary drive is a solid state drive, run Crystal Disk Mark on it and tell me what kind of numbers you get. And then clean up or move off data from that drive so that it's got at least, I'd say, 15% of available space of whatever its total size is, 15% of free space, then run Crystal Disk Mark on it again. You might notice a huge performance increase when it has free space. That's just SSDs for you. So the red is there to alert you that it's almost full. And when it's full, you can't write any more to it, right? That's all. And if you're okay with not writing any more to it, then leave it alone. And if you're not noticing any speed degradation or performance degradation, leave it alone. If you have backups, it really doesn't matter anyway, does it? If everything on that drive you have a copy of somewhere else, worst case scenario is the drive dies, you have to replace it. But the drive almost being full is not indicative of a drive dying. It's just, if you and I eat dinner, we find an analogy, and I want you to eat until you can't eat anymore. Then you and I are going to go on a 10K run immediately thereafter. It might affect your performance. Not necessarily a health risk. This is a great time to ask questions, and thank you for interacting with me. Thank you for asking your questions. Your questions take priority. And I love interacting with you, even if it does, for some of you unfamiliar with my style, feel like I'm not coddling you, and I'm not saying, oh, my poor little baby. I'm not condescending that way. I'm talking to you in the way that I would talk to anybody else, direct. And I'm sharing with you my experience in a very serious way because, quite frankly, I take what I do seriously since I want to not lose my house. Okay, so I don't change it up and talk down or condescending to other people. I talk to you the same way I talk to my customers, and you shouldn't feel attacked or you shouldn't feel like, whoa, that's a bit much. I'm being direct, and I'm trying to use analogies to help you understand where my perspective comes from, and that information is for you to do with whatever you want to. But what I don't want to do is confuse you by or make you somehow imply that it's above your head. All this stuff is easy stuff. So I just want to directly answer that question as much as I can with any analogy I think would be helpful and an explanation to why. So it's not just because I do it, telling you why I do it. Why the computer does what it does. And these answers can sometimes draw out because it's educational. It's not ritual. I don't want you just following a ritual. I don't know why, but if you do this and do this, the computer runs better. I hate that. I hate that. I don't know why, but every time my knee hurts, it rains. Oh my gosh. We're going to stick with education, and we're going to talk about cause and effect logically, and something that you can reproduce and recreate consistently over and over and over again. That takes time. And the level of education that you're going to get from this depends on how much time you're willing to put in. Carey's videos are too long. I'm sorry you don't have time to learn. You know, that's my answer to that. Not that anybody here has said it, but I hear it time and time again. You want the ritual? You're not going to find the ritual here. You want the how, the why, in the example in real time, no edits, unscripted, in real life, you're in the right place. So yes, well, my answer and my candor are direct. They're in no way meant to be insulting or to make anybody feel bad. Just trying to give you my perspective, and then you value that as garbage or you value it as gold. That's up to each and every one of you. I'm not here to dictate that value to you. That's all yours. Okay, just so we're clear. Just so we're clear. Do with it what you will. Mark Gaines with a 10-pound super chat says, Carey, I got new fans for my Lian Li Hydro Shift all-in-one cooler today. And he went to the Unifan SL wireless 120s. Well, send us an updated picture, Mark. Let us know what you think of those. David Graham with a $2 super chat. He says, I forgot about the NVMe slowdown on a full drive. Well, not just NVMe, any solid state drive. Bernie wants to know if I raise my internet box to a higher shelf, does it increase my Wi-Fi distance? So internet box is obviously referring to a wireless router. Usually when placing a wireless router, if you place it central, in the middle, let's say, of your house, even if it's a multi-floor house, the better you can get it to the middle, and the better you can get it higher up, the better the signal will be. Generally speaking, because every house and every environment is different, we don't know what sort of congestion other Wi-Fi around you has. If you're like in an apartment and you're surrounded by other people in other apartments and they all have their own Wi-Fi, then that airspace is going to be very, very congested with Wi-Fi signals. And there may not be much you can do about that other than use a different channel that's less popular, which means a more expensive router, like Wi-Fi 7, for example, and get yourself on 6 gigahertz. That may give you a stronger signal because not as many people have that. So the answer to your question is, try it and tell us, did it make any difference? Because there's no one answer. Depending on what your building's made of, what you're connecting it to, how far you're expecting it to go, what type of router you have, where you've placed it, and how congested your environment is with other signals coming from microwaves or other radio devices. It might make a world of difference. It might make a minor difference. It might make things worse. So you move it and you try it, and then you come back and you tell us, this is what worked for me. We would really appreciate if you do that. Because we can speculate where the dice are going to fall. If you got a 6-sided dice, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. It's going to be one of those. But depending on how you throw the dice and if the dice bounce and the way that you throw the dice, we don't know what the number's going to be for you, the way that you did it on the surface you did it on, what the number's going to be. You have to do that and tell us what the results are. It's much faster, and the results are more certain. They're very certain. Let us know. In theory, it's good practice to put a router up high to get the best signal strength. But in reality, depending on your environment, they may not always be the case. I hear the fan cranking up and slowing down over here, so I'm guessing we're still installing. I just want to check on our progress. Oh, it's done. I'm glad I checked it. Restart. Okay. We'll let that reboot. That'll finish our Windows 24H2 update, and then there'll probably be some updates to 24H2 to check after that. Computer maintenance, as you can see, takes hours. And the more computers you have, the longer the maintenance is going to take. So, when our friend Mitch Morrison is gone on, he's on computer number 5, and he's the only one using them, he's got to do this 5 times. Every so often, right? Whether he's doing it once a month per PC, or maybe he's doing 1 PC a month so that he goes a full circle. After 5 months, he's back around on month 6 to PC number 1. It never ends. Computers always evolving and changing. Security updates are happening more and more rapidly as people are getting more and more clever to steal your money. These updates are critical. So, they're not to be ignored. The updates and the maintenance isn't there for the computer. It's there for you, your safety, and your experience being what you expect it to be. You expect your computer to perform at a certain level without crashing, without being hacked. And these are the things we do to try and prevent that from happening. It's not an absolute world we live in. We can't 100% guarantee it's never going to happen, but we can put everything in line in preparation to reduce the odds. Let's take, for example, raw chicken. Okay. Here's another example. Raw chicken is not a ready-to-eat meal, and yet people can eat raw chicken and never get sick. Raw chicken in and of itself should not contain any bacteria that would cause you harm. But in the processing plant, it picks it up, and in the packaging, it picks it up. And that's why they want you to cook it to guarantee that if there is any bacteria that's not natural to the chicken that happened in the processing, which there shouldn't be if all the processing was done correctly, it's just easier to say, look, cook it to 165 degrees and you'll be fine, right? But in the meantime, I see a fox eat a chicken that's alive. The fox doesn't get sick. I see people eat raw chicken. They don't get sick. I see people eat raw meat. Mel Gibson was famous for sitting down and eating a raw steak. If it's properly prepared, it's not supposed to have E. coli or listeria or whatever's on it. And the same is true with spinach and other vegetables. It's not supposed to be there. It's happening because of the processing, or in the case of vegetables, the water that the cows are using picks up the cow dung, it goes into the water, and then that's sprayed all over the vegetables. And now all of a sudden you got a recall on spinach. You know what I'm saying? So you wash it. Wash it. It's a precaution. It won't guarantee you're going to get all of it, but it shouldn't have been there to begin with. So you can risk it and just go day by day and trust it's all being done for you. And if you want to live your life that way, you go right ahead. If I've not made it clear, I want to do what I can, if there's anything I can do, to improve my odds that I'm not going to get a foodborne illness, or I'm not going to suffer a computer crash or a hack. It's all the same. It's preventive maintenance, and it's basically free. You know, cooking that chicken, basically free. Doing Windows updates, free. Deleting temp files, free. I don't need third-party utilities. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. It's just an attitude. It's a precautionary measure that doesn't guarantee results, but it puts the odds in your favor of not having a bad experience. It's the same philosophy that I use for prepping food that I would use on a computer and throughout my life in all factors. I'm changing the oil in the car, even though there's nothing wrong with the car. I'd like it to stay that way. But changing the oil doesn't mean some other component isn't going to fail or that I'm not going to get into a car accident. But assuming that doesn't happen, by changing the oil, the odds of having an internal engine failure are significantly reduced by changing that oil regularly. So it's a preventive measure. But if the preventive measure takes more time and costs more money than just fixing the problem, then I won't do it, because then it doesn't make any sense. I'd rather just fix a simple, cheap problem than spend time and money to avoid that problem when I can't guarantee that I'm avoiding it. I'm just putting the odds in my favor. So there's no world of absolutes. We're trying to find that balance, just like getting on a bicycle. Lean too far to the left, you're going to fall. Lean too far to the right, you're going to fall. How do you know where the middle is? You know, because you don't fall. And so it's for each of us to determine how much maintenance do you want to do with regards to time versus how much time do you want to invest in diagnosing a problem. But it's no guarantee either way. It's all just practice, safe practices, right? That's all we're trying to infer here, not that you're going to avoid problems. Let me go back over here. Let's check for updates one more time. It does appear to have rebooted while I've been yammering on. And we're going to check to see if there's updates to our update. Remember, this computer hasn't even been being used. It's just been sitting. And that's not a toaster. We don't just plug it in and start using it. You really, if you want to exercise best practices and you want to avoid having a problem, you want to make sure that the computer is updated before you use it. And if it's a brand new computer or it's been sitting around, same reasons. If it's a computer that we've been using, we want to delete the temp files. So in this example, the reason I put 24H2 on it is you can always roll back 24H2. How is that possible? It still has 23H2 on it as a backup. That's what Microsoft does, whether you like it or not. It will automatically come off. But if I want to free up 30 gigs of space on my drive that Windows 23H2 is consuming, and I want to do that right now, and I know my Windows 11 24H2 works, why would I want to roll backwards? I can delete that right now, and I'm going to show you how safely. As soon as these updates are done, we're going to delete all of the, see all these files it's downloading? Where are they going? Once they've installed successfully, you will not be able to uninstall these updates if you delete the update file. I don't uninstall updates. I simply don't do it. I've never had to. It's one way some techs may solve problems. It's not how I solve problems. There's always another way, and that's what I love about this business. So for me personally, I have backups, and that's more important to me than rolling back an update. So I will just take all these Windows updates out of the drive and free that space up. And I'm going to show you how once these updates are done. And we're not going to use any third-party utility. It's all built into Windows, but you must do it by hand. You could have hundreds of gigs of temp files and Windows installer files eating up your drive space. I have seen customers that had more temp files on their drive, more Windows update files on their drive than they were actually using of themselves of their drive. They'd have Windows and Office and documents and bookmarks and Chrome and Edge, and they're maybe using 70 gigs of space. But it's a 500 gig drive where 200 gigs of just ignored maintenance is just sitting on the drive, like litter in an alley. And there's so much litter in the alley, you can't get through the alley. The litter's blocking the way because nobody's taking the garbage out. Someone takes out the garbage, you're like, wow, this alley looks pretty good. It doesn't look so sketchy. It doesn't feel so dangerous. Same thing. Let's look back at the chat, see if I'm missing any other questions. Do I have any experience with satellite internet? No, sorry, I don't. I know, never used it. Tony Aindow says hello from Nottingham. Hope everyone in the chat is, oh, hello to everyone in the chat. Welcome in, Tony. Anarchist says are new to the channel. I have an MSI secondhand gaming laptop. Stopped accepting my password for Windows 11 and Ubuntu. I did a reset. Now Windows 11 is totally gone. And Ubuntu, no idea. I don't know anything about multi-booting. I don't recommend it. I don't do it. So for that kind of question, I would direct you to techguy.org. Tech, T-E-C-H, guy, like guys and gals, G-U-Y, not guide, guy. Techguy, not .com, .org, O-R-G. And that is a free place where you can go for free technical support that may be more appropriate for that kind of a problem. People that are dual booting aren't your average users. These people consider themselves technically savvy and are going to be far more difficult to diagnose because they've got an unusual configuration that they have willingly, voluntarily placed on themselves. And in order for you to go down that path that you wish to go down, you must learn this stuff. You can't have somebody doing it for you. If you don't want to deal with that, then don't dual boot it. If you want to use Linux, use Linux. If you want to use Windows. Separate them out and go to the appropriate forum for any help. If you're trying to do both, you need double the education, and you're going to learn that one of two ways. You're going to go to school and learn it, or you're going to learn online by looking up information with Google and going to free support sites for help. But that is nothing I've ever dealt with from customers that pay me for service. That's simply somebody who's more technically minded or consider themselves to be. And this is the consequence of that. So if you want to continue down that path, expect more of this in the future. That's how you're going to learn and be more technical, which appears to be the way you want to be. But you can't be more technical if you go down the technical road and need everybody, you know, to help dig you out of the holes you're digging yourself. Just, you can. I'm just saying it's a tough way to go about it. Pick a lane, you know. But there are lots of Linux-based user communities and message forums, Reddit, things like that. You can go for help. And there are Windows 11 places you can go for help. And then there's just tech support like techguy.org, where you can go for help, and people are always happy to help. But just expect that. Expect more of that as you continue to learn. And then at some point, you know, you've got better control of it, or you decide it's not worth it and pick one or the other. I'm the guy that says it's not worth it. You know, it's like wanting everything. Pick something and try not to be a jack of all trades. Either pick Linux or pick Windows or pick Mac. Pick something and get really, really good at that one thing if you're technically minded. On the other hand, if you're like, no, I want to speak multiple languages. I want to speak Linux. I want to speak Windows. I want to speak Mac OS. Well, this is the path you're on because you're making that decision, and you can expect more and more of this as you continue to progress in your education. But yeah, techguy.org would be a great place to go for support questions that I can't answer. And that's effectively what I'm saying. I have no idea what to tell you. That's just not something I work with in my business, so I don't know. Of course, watch the chat room. Maybe somebody in the chat has an idea, but it's just not the purview of this channel to pursue anything outside of Windows. That's what's paying my bills. That's how my business runs. It's not like I wake up and I'm in the mood. It's just like working in a mine. That's where the jobs are. All right, let's see. I do appreciate the question. Let's come back over and see how our update's doing. Still installing. All right. So remember, this is just from sitting, not being used. Same with a car. You park a car and you don't drive it for 2 years, you're going to need all the fluids changed. I mean all of them. Brake fluid, antifreeze, power steering, oil, transmission, and the battery's going to be dead. So just because you don't use it doesn't mean it doesn't need any maintenance. In fact, the gas in the tank of that car will be so diluted, it probably won't even start the engine anymore. It'll be all gummy. So yeah, when cars are being stored, it's no different than winterizing a house, where you drain the pipes so the pipes don't freeze. You would drain the fluids of the car. You would disconnect the battery. You would put a stabilizer in the fuel, an additive, or drain the tank. And then you could properly put that car in storage for a long, long time. So a lot of this that we're doing with the computer, it follows through with pretty much anything else in life. You got an inkjet printer and you pulled it out of the closet after 2 years. You think that ink is going to be any good? Printer will probably try to still print just fine, but that ink isn't going to work. And in fact, the ink head itself may be clogged. And it might be faster and cheaper to replace that printer than to try and repair it, especially for the cost of the ink. So we keep going around in these circles where there's no absolutes. How much maintenance versus how much is the repair? How much can we do that's reasonable, free, simple, to put the odds in our favor that we're less likely going to have a problem, versus having the problem, how easy would it be to fix it? And how expensive and how much time would it take? And in that, we each find our own pathway. Because I'm getting paid by clients to maintain computers, it's in my best interest that they don't call me with support problems. So I don't mind putting a few minutes in now if it's going to save me hours later, and the customer never has the experience, and they never know they didn't have the experience because it never happened. But I know because of the maintenance I put in there, they didn't have the problem. And the reason I know that is when I get called from other customers I don't maintain who are having the problem, and that's the only difference between them. And that encourages me to keep doing what I'm doing, and that's how I know what I'm doing is working and it's effective. It's worth my time, and I am giving my customers value. I have that verification all the time when it's not my customers that are calling me. What's the difference? The maintenance. Okay, one more time back over here. Are we still installing? Oh, good. We can reboot finally. So all of these updates are being stored on the hard drive, and they're stored there so you can uninstall them in the future. Windows 24H2, I think you have 15 or 30 days or something to restore. But again, if it's working right out of the gate, there's no reason to want to go backwards. If you have a backup, there's no reason to need to store these files anyway. And especially if your real estate, your drive, your solid state drive or hard drive real estate is valuable to you, don't you want to use it for your stuff instead of Windows and Microsoft taking it all up? So if you don't run this yourself, how would you know? Is it happening automatically? Look and see. If I don't see it, it's not there. It's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. The don't panic glasses. If you can't see it, you won't freak out. You'll be fine. The effective ostrich sticking its head in the sand, which I don't think even ostriches do. But regardless, getting off tangent here. Let me come back over here and see if we've rebooted yet. Nope, those are some big updates. Whenever you see a cumulative update, it's going to be a little while. Those are big. And they're all recommended. There's no updates I ever suggest you avoid. Watch this channel. You can go all the way back to day one in 2008 when we started this channel. Never once have I said you should avoid this update of any Windows operating system. That's my process. That's how I work. You may disagree, but I have a business to run, and I'm simply sharing, once again, the policies and procedures I have learned the hard way to implement in order to ensure I can stay in business and have happy customers. So you take that for whatever it's worth. Yellowstone said there's problems with 24H2. Name one. I'm not aware of any. How is it possible? I've installed 24H2, what, about 300 times? It's never not installed. It's never had a problem. So there are problems, don't get me wrong, but I think they're more fixed with the users than they are with the operating system. Now, no operating system is perfect. And there may be certain circumstances where all of the prerequisites line up just right, but the odds of that happening to you would be very slim. The most people complaining about Windows 24H2 consider themselves technical, and they're in their own way. What I like to see is if somebody has a question rather than a statement, then we can answer their question. But when somebody assumes what they're telling you is true, I have a problem with that. So somebody doesn't use their real name, we don't know who they are, and they may not even be a real person, says, this is a fact. According to who? Where'd you get that information from? And why wouldn't you just simply ask for verification? For example, if you're aware of a problem with 24H2, the way I would approach it is I would say, does anybody know how to fix this problem? And name what the problem is specifically in regards to 24H2. And I think what you'll find is there's an answer, and it isn't 24H2's. Can you imagine if I told that to my customers? Hey, Carey, how do I fix this? Oh, you don't? Well, then what do we pay you for? There's always a fix, and it's always just educating the client, always. So anytime you see those statements, consider who it's coming from. And if it's coming from somebody anonymous who you don't know, it's just noise. If they were actually somebody in the industry that was respected, their opinion would be then admired by peers in the industry. I definitely want to hear from them. But if they're just a random person on the internet, they're just looking for attention, or they're delusional in thinking they have technical knowledge, and when
when they reach a point where they're stuck, this is a fascinating psychology in this industry. The people who consider themselves technical always blame the computer when there's a problem. And the average users who call me say, I don't know what I did wrong, but now I can't print, right? Something where they assume, the ones who don't consider themselves technical assume they broke it, and the ones who consider themselves technical assume someone else broke it. Why it's fascinating to me is most of the time, I can't give you an exact percentage, just it's a pattern of behavior I see over and over again. They're backwards. So the customer calls and says, I don't know what I did, but I can't print anymore. They didn't do anything. They got a cable somebody loosened and it just needs to be plugged in. Maybe the cleaners came in, or maybe there was an update to that printer. That's the wrong update. They didn't do it. It could have happened automatically. They didn't do anything wrong, but they assume they did. Then you got the technical person who just says, I know what I'm talking about and this is a problem. And instead of asking for help to educate them on what they don't know, they just make this bold statement that goes against reality, because if you just look around, there's a lot of 24H2. So how are people using it? Apparently they live somewhere else in a different world from the rest of us. So just bear that in mind as you're reading comments or seeing videos from other content creators. These are red flags to watch for. As a tech, I'd much rather somebody approached me with, how can I fix this, than to approach me with, this can't be fixed. I've never seen a problem that can't be fixed, ever in my career with regards to Windows and computer hardware. It's never happened. But I have seen people who psychologically have convinced themselves, and now it's important for them to tell you that. And it's important for us listening or reading that we're able to discern the statement and weigh it with value according to who it's coming from and what they're saying, and if they have any sort of citation that they're including from an official source or a respected source that verifies the statement they're making versus an internal bias or limitation of their knowledge. This is a frustration, the likes of which you have to do this job to understand. You'll get a call from a customer that says, our email doesn't work. It was working fine and now it doesn't work. You need to get over here and fix this. I start looking at, is the domain up? Domain is up. We're pinging the server's pinging. What do you think the problem was? Customer's email was working fine. Years. All of a sudden, everybody in that company, their email stops working. Servers are up. I verify, yeah, the email's not working. Nothing's going out, nothing's coming in. I got to go through all this research, technical research. Is the network running? Is the reboot the router, reboot the cable modem? Anybody want to guess? Come on. Somebody's got to have the answer. Easiest answer you could possibly imagine, and it's nothing to do with anything technical. Didn't pay the bill. David Graham. Congratulations, David. He's on the board. Very well done. Didn't pay the bill. I'm not their accountant. It's not my job. I don't know if they paid the bill. I'm dealing with the consequence of not paying the bill, and they're throwing that on me like it's something I can fix. Well, give me the money. I'll pay the bill on your behalf. Frustrating sometimes, this line of work. All right, let's jump back over here. I think we should be done. Yes. Okay, now I'm assuming if we go back to Windows Update, it's going to tell us we're all caught up. So I'm going to verify my assumption. Because if I'm right, this will just take a minute. And that's going to come back and say, yeah, you're all up to date. So give that a second or a minute, whatever it is. And while that's running, we'll take a look at our system properties. Oh, yeah, we're already up to date. No more updates. All right, we're going to right click on the start button. We're going to go back to system, and we're going to look to see that 24H2 is now our version of Windows 11. And it is. All of that's successful. But here's a problem. If you look on the computer to the capacity of the C drive, you'll see we're at, how much space are we using? We'll go to properties. We were experimenting with the RAID controller on this back at Studio B. That's why the High Point software is on there. But otherwise, it's an empty system. But for some reason, we're using 90 gigs of data on a clean install of Windows. How does that make any sense? Now look, it's a 2 terabyte drive. We're not short on space. But it's like saying, it's a big house. I don't need to take the trash out. It could pile up for a while before it hits the ceiling. I'd rather stay on top of that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to close everything here, and we're going to type in the word disk cleanup. But didn't you turn on storage then? I did. But these clean up 2 different ways. Now, you can see I've never run this before because only the 2 top boxes are checked, and all the other boxes, except that last one, they're all empty. Once I run this the first time, it'll remember my settings from last time. But there's 2 different, so technically there's 3 different disk cleanups. There's storage sense, there's a standard disk cleanup, and then there's a system file disk cleanup, which contains the regular disk cleanup that it defaults to, which is only going to remove 16.5. Well, here, let's check all the boxes. I'll just show you. If we check all these boxes, it's going to remove 4.86 gigs. I mean, that's a lot, but that's not. By comparison, when we want to clean up system files, it's going to start looking at previous Windows installations and Windows update files that make up probably 30 gigs of data at this point. 24H2, keeping 23H2 on the system is a massive, it's over 20 gigs. And then you've got the Windows 24H2 installation files, which is probably another 6 or 8 gigs, right? Those 2 together are like 38 gigs, 28 gigs, plus the 6 gigs you just saw. It looks like if we put a check in every single box, there's nothing in here you're going to want. You can safely check all the boxes. And now we're going to free up about 37 gigs of data, 36, 37. That's nearly half of the 90 gigs it says we're using. We're really close to half of our storage space being consumed with Windows files that we don't need anymore. Now, if we were going to do a system image, I don't want to do a system image that's 90 gigs. It's going to take twice as long as a system image that's 50 gigs, let's just say. It's in my best interest to keep my life simple, to my backups go faster. Why am I backing up temp files? Why am I backing up cache files? Why am I backing up previous Windows installations? That's, I don't get it. Like that would be a whole different backup. You understand what I'm saying? I wouldn't want the backup in my Windows. I want my backups in my backups in my Windows in my Windows. All right, we're going to click OK. And we're going to delete all these files. Again, if you don't do this yourself, who knows how much wasted space is sitting around on your drive. And if you have a D drive, you can check the D drive and clean it as well. But when it comes to the Windows installation files, it will stop and say, hey, sorry, not the Windows installation, the previous version of Windows, the 23H2. It says if you delete your 20 gig 23H2, although it may not specify the size, you will not be able to revert back to it. So are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, I want to revert back. Preferably if I could go back to using sticks and stones rather than knives and guns to defend myself or defend for my food. Why would I want to work harder? So of course I'm going to say yes to this and say, yeah, take it out. Now that's going to take a while because it's not just deleting whole directories, it's deleting individual files by the thousands. One by one by one by one. That's why it's going to seemingly take a long time. That's how Microsoft does it. It's, you know what? You can still use the computer. You don't have to sit here and watch grass grow. Just use the computer or walk away. It doesn't matter. When it's done, this box will just go away. You don't get any confirmation. It's free. Have you run this yet? How come? Run it now. I'm telling you, there's no downside to it. And there's no downside to anything as long as you can maintain a regular backup. Okay. Super easy. Now the other thing is, as you add and remove USB flash drives and things to your computer, that builds up in your registry. You changed printers. I see so many people, they never take the old printer out. And even when they take the old printer out, it's still in the registry. Now, a lot of times this doesn't matter. But in particular, where I've seen it cause problems is people are plugging in a keyboard that used to work, and now it's not working anymore. And what's happened is the computer's pulling the old driver file from the last time you plugged that keyboard into that specific USB port. You see, every USB port you plug the keyboard into, or the printer, or the flash drive, it has to load the driver separately every single time. So if you use a different USB port for your flash drive, then you have that same driver. Let's say you've got 6 different USB ports, and you're always using, over time, over the course of the last couple of years, you've effectively put that flash drive in all 6 USB ports. Then you've got that driver associated to each USB port, and it's just hidden from you. You can't see it. Now you've done the same with your friend came over with their phone, and you plugged their phone in, and that loaded a driver. And then you plugged in a printer, but you didn't like it, and that brought in a driver. And over the years, you know, I've talked to some of you, and some of you have a bunch of USB stuff. And over the years, what can happen is now suddenly the USB device that used to work isn't working anymore. And that's because you left all those old drivers on there that typically you don't have to worry about. But I'm going to show you how you can see them and remove them. While this is running the cleanup, I can show you this right now. Now, this machine doesn't necessarily have a long history of a bunch of USB stuff, so it's not going to be that dirty. But if we were to take an image of the system and restore it onto a different motherboard, we're going to get all these drivers and all the motherboard's new drivers all in the registry, and it's a big mess. And it shows up in the device manager as like dozens and dozens and dozens and possibly hundreds of missing hardware that it's loaded the drivers for. If it's loading the drivers for those things that aren't there, that's potentially using more resources and can cause a conflict with something to not run right. And it's typically worse when moving a system to another completely different system. And this is a step you can take to mitigate the potential for that issue, or it's a step you take if something USB isn't working. So the first thing I would do, if I have a USB flash drive, which I happen to have, we'll just use my utilities flash drive to demonstrate how this works. And I plug this in and it doesn't show up, then I'm going to try a different port. If it works in a different port, then either something's damaged in the port or you've got a driver conflict. That'll be in your device manager. If you plugged it in multiple ports, it's still not working, then go to a different computer to determine what your common denominator is. Is it just this computer or is it just this flash drive? So if the flash drive doesn't get recognized on 2 completely different computers, you got a bad flash drive. It happens. Why you have backups. Okay, so let's add the flash drive to this. Let's see what happens in the device manager. I'm going to show you how this can build up over time and how it can then lead to you having a problem if you don't maintain it. This is not common knowledge, by the way. So let's go to this desktop over here. We're still cleaning, and that's fine again. Regardless, we don't have to sit and wait for it to finish. We continue to use the computer as we normally would. It multitasks. All right, I'm going to take the flash drive, and we're going to open the device manager. I want you to watch what it does. So we'll right-click on the Start button, go to Device Manager, and everything's happy, right? And in particular, we're going to be adding a drive down here under Universal Serial Bus. Like we have a Synology. I don't know why we've got that, but it's recognizing it anyway. All right, so I'm going to grab my flash drive. We're going to plug it in right now and watch how the device manager responds. Windows says, I know what this is. I'll load the driver for it, and you'll see it kind of blank out. I think. There it goes. And now we have some devices we didn't have before. Okay, now I'm going to pull the flash drive out. Like, how many items do we have in here? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8. Pull the flash drive. Now how many devices do we have? Let's go back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, one's missing. Where did it go? Oh, it's still there. If you click on View, Hidden Items, or Hidden Devices, what do you know? It's right there as a ghost. So every time we plug something into a USB port and we use a different USB port, we'll get another one of these. So this is a USB mass storage device is how it's appearing. So now I'm going to take the same flash drive, I'm going to plug it into a different USB port right now. We'll go this one right here. They could be right next to each other, doesn't even matter. Now, there it is right there. I'm going to unplug it. The USB mass storage device goes away. And then if we refresh, we will likely see 2 of those. Oh, it's still leaving it as 1. All right, I'm going to come around back. I'm going to plug it into another USB port. We'll go back here and USB mass storage device. Well, that's interesting that it's keeping the same driver, so I stand corrected. Maybe it's just people are using a lot of different flash drives, and you'll see a bunch of mass storage devices. So I'm going to just pull the flash drive out now, and we should still see the item ghost out. But here's the thing. If you click on every one of these, how many ghosted out things are on this computer that's barely used? Especially like in the network section and other devices, I'm not really finding any. But the older your system is, like here's a portable device that's shaded out. All of these ghosted devices you can remove by hand by simply, like let's say we clone this to a different computer, then we're still going to have all of these cores on this 13th gen. They'll all be shaded out, and then we'll have another giant list of all the new cores on our different processor, if we went to an AMD or something. Now, they don't necessarily cause harm, but they can. And they're not doing you any good staying as ghosted devices anyway, because if you ever needed it again, it'll reload itself automatically when and if it's ever needed. So because this is a clean build that's barely been used, try this yourself and look through there and see how many shaded devices. Here's a shaded volume, which is likely the volume that's part of the drive that's part of the USB. So there's 3 different devices. Now you can click on the shaded device, right click on it, and uninstall it. Boom, it's gone. You can do that for every shaded out device. But what happens if you have dozens and dozens and dozens of them? You're going to be there all day. You can also hit the delete key on your keyboard if you select one. So like here's a volume that's shaded out. I'll hit delete on the keyboard. It says you're about to delete it. Yep. But here's the beauty of it. These devices all loaded automatically, or they loaded from a driver, like in the case of a printer. So that's how you'd put it back on if you ever needed it again. But anything that's shaded out, you're not using. You understand? So if it's not there, and it's no longer taking up space and resources and registry, then therefore, by logic, you would have no negative consequences to this. As long as it was shaded out. And then if it's some old piece of hardware you plug back in, then it just loads it back up on its own again. So we had that high point controller in here, right? So maybe under drive controllers, storage controllers, maybe that high point is still in here. Storage devices. No, it's not in here anymore. If you had a bunch of these, and many of you do, there's a utility that you can use that I learned about from watching Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to. So if I go to YouTube, because I'm going to give Mike credit for this, he didn't create it, but he's the one who introduced it to me. This will do it for you in a second versus you going through each one manually and potentially making a mistake. You don't want to click on something that's not grayed out. If you do, when you restart your computer, whatever that is you remove should come back automatically, but you will need to restart. So if we go to Mike's unboxing, just that's enough. I probably have to separate those 2 words. Why is he not appearing? Probably because I put sunboxing. I think that's his OnlyFans channel. All right, let's go back over here. There he is. And then we're looking for the device manager. Here we go. This is exactly the video. Through his hundreds of videos, I instantly found it with the right search terms. How to fix PC devices and peripherals that are not working. It's a short video. It's not a Carey video. It doesn't go on for hours. This video, minus the advertising here, hit skip. And no thanks. This video is, here's the time, 10 minutes. And he demonstrates this freeware piece of software that does not install. It's just a portable piece of software. You can run it right off a flash drive, shows you where to get it. And he shows you a device manager that's way messier than mine. See all the shaded devices he's got in here? Well, that one doesn't really show many. He will. Okay, he had the OBS bot camera plugged in one port, and then he plugged it into a different port, so he's got it there twice. All these drives that were plugged in through USB, etc., they're all shaded out, and he's got dozens and dozens of them. So he runs this piece of software here that's portable. No, look at all this. Oh my gosh. Anyway, you'd run it as administrator, and it's called Device Cleanup Tool. And it's really easy to run. You're going to go up here and you're going to just click on, show me the shaded devices. It's just going to show you non-present. See that list? It says non-present. And you can say, just remove all the non-present devices up here. And it just takes it out. And you restart the computer. And all of a sudden, the keyboard that didn't work works again. And he demonstrates that in this video. The other thing is it keeps everything nice and clean in regards to getting all that old hardware and stuff out of there. So even if it's not causing you a problem, you're not using it anyway. So just delete it, get rid of it. It's free. No, this is a third-party utility. However, it's not one you can buy. This is not available for sale. This is open source, and I failed to put that condition on it. When the third-party utility, if it's drivers, if it's system tune-up utilities, their goal is typically to get you to buy the program. There's nothing to buy here. And it's open, I believe that's open source. I think it's GitHub, so you can see the code. So everything is transparent. And under those conditions, and for that specific scenario, all that utility is doing is automating the manual removal process. And Microsoft does not have a tool for that. Because Microsoft says you don't need to, you could just leave those in there, they're not hurting anything. Sometimes they do. And somebody who likes things clean, I will go through my customers' computers, and this is not something I do regularly, but every 2 years, you can run that. Any more than every 2 years is probably unnecessary unless you're someone that likes to play around with a lot of different USB devices and hard drives and stuff. And even then, it's probably not necessary. Where it comes in handy is when something that was working, that's through USB in particular, stops working and you can't make heads or tails of it. That's often the cause right there. For a problem that barely happens, that's often the solution. But it's not a very common problem. But I also like looking in the device manager and seeing no hidden devices. So if we run an example on this machine on how this works, let me show you how this will work. We'll go back over here to camera 2. And I believe Mike has links and everything in his video notes, but we can search for it. Anything you see on this channel, you should not need to ask me where I got that. If you have Google, you should be able to just type in the name of the thing. So this was called Device Cleanup Tool. And what we're looking for is like a GitHub type link. And you're going to see a lot of sponsored results here. Stay away from the sponsored results. We have to scroll down a little bit. Now, from Major Geeks, which is a software distribution site, this is likely a copy of the actual program we're looking for. I'd prefer to go to the source. So this uCyber's homepage, this appears to be the right location. And there's a German version of this site for those of you who prefer that in German. And he's got a bunch of different programs. He's got a USB tree viewer. He has a restart USB port utility that's like shut down and restart a USB port, but very rare you would ever need to do that. He's got a, these are all little portable utilities designed to solve a specific problem. And this is it right here. Device Cleanup Tool version 1.4.0 removes non-present devices from Windows Device Management. And there's a screenshot of a bunch of ghosted non-present devices. And there's a 32-bit version and a 64. We obviously want the 64-bit because there's no such thing as a 32-bit Windows 11. It's a very tiny little download. I'm going to click to open that. And inside of it, there's going to be two files, a text file, executable. I can extract it if I want, or I can just right-click. Maybe I can't run it as administrator when it's still in the zip. So I guess I will extract it. Takes 2 seconds, right-click and choose Run as Administrator. It's going to say, I don't know what this is. I know it's safe. We're going to run it anyway and verify with user account control to give it permission. And let's close all the clutter out behind us. Let's just get rid of all of it. As you can see, by default, it loads showing non-present devices. I don't have to tell it to show me that. It assumes that's why I started the program. That's good on the developer's part. So now the question is what I want to do with it. So if we click up at our options, tools, it's in here somewhere. Remove selected, select all and remove selected. So select all the non-present devices and remove selected. They're all gone now. After that, if we look in our device manager, we're not going to find any more ghosted devices. It's removed all of them. So if I go back to device manager and look back under USB, I should not see that ghosted flash drive anymore. And the flash drive is not plugged in. It's sitting here on the table. So we want to make sure this doesn't affect Windows starting. So we'll restart Windows. And you'll see it has no impact negatively on the system. And it may prevent problems in the future that would cause a USB device to stop working, especially if you have a lot of ghosted items in there. Now, why isn't this common knowledge? Why is it this kind of content is so hard to find? I don't know. And it's going to be hard to find for anybody that says my videos are too long and they won't sit through it long enough to get these little nuggets and understand the foundation, why these are so important. They just want to ritualize. So my thing is, look, if you want the information, you need to sit through the class to understand why you want this information. Otherwise, you know, why bother teaching anybody anything? Just make a piece of software that does everything for them and they don't have to think on their own. I'm not promoting that. If you're going to do something, I want you to understand why you're doing it and what the potential upside and downside are of that action. Now, if we were to remove something from the device manager that we needed, so let's go back to the start button here. Under device manager, I think it's pretty important that we have a display driver. But what if I accidentally remove it? So I hit the delete key and I just hit uninstall. What do you think is going to happen? We have no more display driver. Whoopsie. So you may not even realize you did it until you go to restart. So what happens when we restart without a display driver? Well, I'm going to show you right now. Windows is going to load and say, hey, you have a new display. I better load a driver for it. And you might see your screen looks a little funky at first, and then your screen will blank out and come back. And you might need to reset the resolution to what you had it before, any customization. But it goes back to like a new, fresh, clean driver install. And it also may not be the latest driver install. So you might want to check then that you got the latest one. Now in this case, there's the screen going blank as I told you it would do. That's loading the driver on. And if we go back in the device manager now, guess what it just did? It just put that driver right back in because that's how it got there to begin with. So there's not a whole lot of consequences of making mistakes, but I would still try to avoid making mistakes because what's the point of spending more time and effort that you didn't need to spend to have it all just undone again? Might as well not do it to begin with, right? So that is part of the maintenance that really bothers me that people aren't talking about. No differently than people so focused on thermal paste don't talk about their power supplies. They don't talk about the airflow and the heat of their power supply. It's not mentioned, it's omitted, and it's what you're not being told is what your focus should be on. Well, it's interesting to hear this information. What am I not telling you? That's what you should be asking yourself right now, followed with why. I guarantee you there's more to it than my explanation. I am determining what becomes overkill information, but you may not think so. But since I'm not offering it, you don't know what's missing unless you go looking for it. That's how information works. They say the history books are written by the winners of history. So they can write it the way they see it. And the losers of history don't really get their story told. So is the history we're reading really accurate? All right, let's go back to camera 1. Joshua Mattingly with a $10 super chat. Carey, he says, you always share such useful tools. Thank you for keeping up the good work. Joshua, thank you for the super chat. And once again, to reiterate, I wasn't born knowing any of this. I've learned it from other people, and I've learned to trust certain sources. Live Windows training with Doug Betts, great source with proven information from somebody who works in the industry, not a hobbyist. Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to, a constant source of accurate information. Somebody's in the industry, not just a hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist. But there is a difference why the word hobbyist exists and why the word professional exists. They are not interchangeable synonyms. So if you align yourself more with a hobbyist perspective, that's fine. I don't, because I don't make any money from that. That's spending money. That's the opposite. Hobbyists spend money, professionals make money. If you're not making any money, then you're not a professional in that line of work. Just ask any court of law where you think you want to be an expert witness on a specific topic. There are qualifications to certify you as a specialist witness, an expert witness, I mean, versus somebody who's just tinkers around and plays with it and you're familiar. And not much good on the witness stand, you know, unless you actually saw something. But that wouldn't necessarily be an expert witness. That would be more a witness who saw something or experienced something, but not necessarily has a lot of experience in that specific field to say if it's normal or not. Okay, so anyway, getting way off track. I've shown you how to do the Windows updates. I've shown you how to clean your drive. I have shown you that my exception to the third-party utility, which I openly admit I should have prefaced that, but a very small portable. We're not installing any utilities. What about a BIOS update? Do we have a current BIOS update, and should we? Look, if I'm maintaining your computer, you're always going to have the latest BIOS update. That's my perspective because I'm taking liability and accountability for your machine. But they say you shouldn't put a BIOS update in unless you need it. They, being the manufacturers, don't want you creating a problem that you wouldn't have had and then calling support and breaking something that now they have to fix. And you're going to expect it under warranty. And they're going to say, well, then why did you do all this? Why are you calling us or emailing us for a problem you created? Who told you to do that? Well, I was watching this guy, Carey. Oh, gosh. Carey is costing us so much money, and he's pissing off our customers when they don't follow Carey's instruction and they don't listen to the details. So instead, they just go, don't do it. Leave us alone. That's what they're telling you. If you don't mess with it, you won't break it. And if you break it, you're going to call us, and that's going to cost us money. So in order for us to save as much money as possible and ensure you're the happiest customer possible with our product, don't do that unless you have to. That's the manufacturer. It's boilerplate. Nonsense. I'm a support technician paid to maintain computers. I don't need to know what that BIOS update does, and I don't want to know what the BIOS update does. If I don't install the BIOS update, and later my customer has a problem that I have to research and diagnose where the fix is the BIOS update, why would I put myself into a reactive situation when I can simply put the BIOS update on the system and the customer will never be affected by whatever the BIOS fix is? Guaranteed. But the argument is, what if the BIOS update has nothing to do with the customer? Then it won't hurt either. I know what I'm doing. I haven't had a BIOS update fail in 10 years or more. This isn't the 90s anymore. It's not risky. It's super easy stuff. So let's put it on there. Who cares what it does? And never, ever have that problem. And my customers, they never experience the problem. So they don't know that because I did the proactive measures, that it prevented them from having a problem that if I didn't do, they would have had. And they don't know that. All they know is, Carey takes care of our computers and everything always works. Well, that's my voluntary policy. This is how I choose to run my business. I'm not telling you you have to do it. I'm telling you why I do it. And I'm telling you why the manufacturers tell you not to. You get it? You pick which way you want to go. Let's see if we have the latest BIOS update. Now, there's a couple different ways we can check this. We can manually go in the BIOS and look. We can use CPU-Z, a free third-party utility that's portable. We don't have to install it. You can't buy it. It's not for sale. It's just an open source thing. So when I'm talking about third-party utilities, and I should have said this in the beginning, I'm talking about those things that are trying to get you to buy the full working version, or they're limited and they'll unlock them if you pay. I don't use any of those, and I don't think you should either. Whether it's Revo, whether it's CCleaner, they're trying to sell it to you, okay? So just, if they're trying to sell it, that's the red flag. If it wants to install, that's a red flag. If we can run it portable, we're good. Crystal Disk Info, Crystal Disk Mark, CPU-Z, Hardware Info, Hardware Monitor, Cinebench R23. These are things you see me use, and I can count how many I use on both hands. I've had people say, could you list all the utilities you use? No. Why? Because I don't run all utilities on all computers. I'm not a robot. I use my brain. I see what the problem is that I'm trying to solve, and I pick from my tools. It's like asking me every tool in my toolbox. Can you tell me every? No. Well, why not? Because you don't use all the tools. You use a specific tool to fix a specific problem. So if you're having a specific problem and you want to know what tool to use, I'll answer that question. But you want to be prepared for anything, so you want all the same tools I have, I guarantee you're going to need a tool I don't have. I don't have a tool for everything. So that's no way to avoid a problem or be ready when a problem occurs. Not only that, a lot of the software tools are updated frequently. So just to grab them now, when you need them in a year and a half, if you ever need them at all, you're going to be using an old, outdated version, which is likely not going to lead you to the solution. It's only going to make things more complicated because you thought you were ready. That's not how you're ready. It's not how it works. So I don't do that because I just think it's silliness. It's like people are tricking themselves into thinking, if I have all the tools he has, then I can solve all the problems he solves, but not all the problems, period. And just because you have the tool doesn't mean you know how to use it or you're any good at using it. This is not how we solve problems, by being prepared for unknown problems that never occur. Okay, I don't work that way, but I will take preventive measures that I recommend everybody do that's safe. And if I were doing the work for you, this is what I would be doing. And again, you don't agree with that, that's fine. Doesn't change my business. I don't care. Do with it what you will. So I'm already just trying to counter the naysayers that I'm not twisting your arm. I'm showing you how I do it. I'm not asking for your agreement, and I'm not asking you to follow along, and I'm not telling you you have to. It's just information. Now, when it comes to updating the BIOS, let's jump back over here to camera 2. There's multiple ways, as I mentioned, we can check for the BIOS. And one way that I like checking these days is, especially if it's an Intel-based system, using the Intel automatic driver assistant. Remember, Intel's not a third party. This is a real program that will keep your Intel-related hardware up to date. So if we go to Edge browser and we'll type in Intel driver assistant, right? Here it is. It's a free download, and we'll download it right now. Pretty little, and again, it's not third party. So this is saying there is a prerequisite required for this that we don't have. Because it's Intel, I trust them, and I'm going to go ahead and permit that. And that's basically a Microsoft runtime library that the driver support assistant requires to run. So that's it. It puts it on. I agree to the license agreement, but I do not have to agree to the improvement program. That's just reporting data collection back on if you're successful or not and what the problem is, and it's supposedly anonymous. You can choose accept or decline. I usually decline it because I'm not paid to help Intel. If they want to pay me, that's different. But you might just be, hey, you know, what I do helps. Let them have it. We'll hit launch, and you'll see a browser tab open. We'll close these other browser tabs to avoid any confusion here. And it says we have newer drivers than Windows was offering us, or Windows Update. We have a new video driver, we have a new Wi-Fi driver, and a new Intel Bluetooth. But also, if we look down, we can see the BIOS information on the motherboard. We can see about our audio chip, our graphics chip, our processor. Look at all the details. Even our storage right down here. We can learn, you know, we have a P41, that's obviously SK Hynix, if you're aware of the model number. We see how much capacity it has. We can see the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth information, the network card, even though it's Realtek, it's not providing us the driver, but it is telling us here's what it is. This is very similar information to what we get from CPU-Z, or we can go into the BIOS, but it's right here built through this application in the browser. I'm going to hit download all. Just grab them all. Why not? I can't tell you what they do, and I don't want to find out the hard way that I need it later. So, generally speaking, when it comes to software and drivers, newer is always better. People don't like change. What do? Oh, they made it different. I don't like it now. Well, that's something older people do. Young people don't do that, by the way. So if you want to stay young mentally, you got to maintain that young attitude, which is embrace the change. It's like Lewis and Clark are going across the United States to map it out, find a path to the West Coast. You know what, guys? I like it here in Boston. I think I'm going to stay. Okay? It's your choice. They're not coming back for you. Every time we install the driver, it should then rescan and tell us what drivers are remaining. Here we have install history and available updates. So we'll do the Wi-Fi driver. And the reason I'm going backwards is I know that video driver wants to reboot, where the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth don't. So I'm just trying to do this with one reboot. We'll save that for the end. In the meantime, we can also continue, well, that's doing that in the background, looking up our BIOS. So we have an MSI Pro B60M Wi-Fi DDR4. I can highlight that, hit Control-C, open up a new tab, paste that right in there with the word BIOS, and which should take us right to MSI's website, which it does. Click on that first link, and we'll go to BIOS right here. Scroll down. It says the latest BIOS version was released 2 days ago. What are the odds that we have that? And it's version 7D99, version 1D. So if we look back over here, it should tell us our BIOS version is, it looks like 1.0. Boy, that D and that 0, they look alike, don't they? The model number MS7099, 7D99. Why do they do that? 7D99 version 1D. There's a 1C. There's a C1, a 1C1, a 1B, a 1A, then it goes to numbers 9, 8, 7, no 6. Then it goes to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's ours right there. I think we're a little behind, huh? So we don't need any of these. Just go to the last one. The first one. Skip everything in between. Let's grab it. We'll open that and extract the contents to the hard drive here in the downloads folder. And we'll open that file, and you see the file size 32 megs and 2K. We want the big one here. Right click, copy. Now, again, to avoid any confusion, I'm going to close everything out. We're going to get back to the software updates. Say they're in progress. That's because it's waiting on me to click something. There it is. That driver doesn't take very long to install, but that can be confusing. You're like, why is this taking so long? You got to look down on your system tray to see if it's running behind something and you're not seeing it. Now I'm going to grab a flash drive, just an empty, blank, regular old everyday flash drive. I'm going to literally plug it into whatever first port I can see back here. It doesn't have to be a specific one. And then that's going to bring up our, there it is. The autoplay shows up. We'll open the folder, and it should be empty. And we'll paste that BIOS file right in there. And finally, I'll do my last download, and we'll go back over to available updates. There's our graphics driver. We'll go ahead and install that now. I know that needs a reboot when it's done, and when it reboots, we can also then go into the BIOS and install our BIOS update. 2 birds, 1 stone. Try and get it done efficiently. And in a minute, as this decompresses and opens this file right here, it's going to extract these files and then bring up the installer graphical user interface where it asks for, license agreement, and you want to do a custom install. So we start with begin installation, and then it checks to make sure we have hardware that this even works with. Give that a second. Here we go. There's a license agreement. Hit OK. Do you want to be involved in their computing improvement? I'd rather not. And then start. That's it. If you're the kind of person that goes into customize, man, supporting you would be a nightmare because you're moving stuff around where it's not supposed to go or isn't the standard place. And that makes helping people like that very difficult because they're following non-standard, non-recommended file locations. And that results sometimes in Windows updates not working correctly. Where do my documents go? But if you're of that technical mindset, then you know exactly what to do and you don't need to ask me for help, right? So we don't try to modify Windows much more than we really need to in order to satisfy the ability to scale up support to hundreds and thousands of computers where we don't have to make notes on every single one, find those notes and look up what's different about that one from everybody else. Not if you want to stay in business and not if you want to work quickly. When you see the screen blank out, that's a video driver going in. Just like changing a tire on a car, you got to stop the car first. Then you can take the flat tire off, put your new tire on, and then you can put the car in motion again after the tire has been secured correctly. That's no different than a video driver. And a lot of times it still doesn't fully function until you restart the computer so that the driver can fully remove all the remnants of the old driver from RAM and fully utilize all the features of the new driver, which is why a restart is often required or is at least optional. And it's always a good idea to restart the computer anytime a new driver goes in, because the next time you restart the computer, if it doesn't start right, and you've done a bunch of other installs or changes, how do you know which one caused that problem? Good luck diagnosing that. You're going to be a while. Bring a Snickers bar. So there are processes we follow where slow and steady are always going to win the race. And so here it says recommended versus just finished. We're going to do that recommended because we have to get in the BIOS anyway. So you might as well just go ahead and do them both. It says you're about to be signed out. That's all well and good. And as we get to the post screen, we'll start pressing the delete key or whatever key it is on your machine to get into the BIOS. So in just a minute here, if I'm timing this right, pressing delete over and over and over right now over and over. Keep doing it. Press, press, press. There we are. And we want to verify our BIOS version, which is right here. It says it's 1C1. So look at that. The Windows, sorry, the Intel driver assistant. I don't recall seeing 1C1 in there, but it's still old. And we know that that was a beta BIOS. So regardless, we still have a newer BIOS version. We're the B760M Wi-Fi DDR4. I hope it's the right board I downloaded the BIOS for. But the BIOS will not install if it's for the wrong board. So these problems of the past don't exist anymore today on modern computers. We're going to use mFlash with MSI. Do you want to enter flash mode? I do. Now the system has shut itself off. It's going to restart into flash mode. That's unique to MSI. I'm not aware of ASUS, ASRock, or Gigabyte doing BIOS updates this way. But, you know, if they all did it the same, they'd probably sue each other. So here's how MSI does it. That flash drive is still plugged in where I left it. And if we look, it's the first thing offered right here. If I click on it, it's going to tell us down here, this is what we have in grayed out in the build date. And here's what we selected. This is the new version and the build date. So they're not that far apart. This is dated the end of September. This is dated the first week of August. It wasn't as extreme as it appeared to be on the information we had at the time. It's still newer. I don't know what it does. I don't care, and I don't want to find out the hard way. So I just hit enter. It says, are you sure? I hit enter, and it updates. It's really no big deal. Now, if you live somewhere where you have frequent power outages, I hope you have a UPS, regardless of updating a BIOS. I live in a big suburbia town, and we very rarely have power outages. And that would be the worst thing that could happen. If you want to be extra cautious, get a UPS. I am not extra cautious. I'm practical. I'm not going to spend money on something I don't need unless there's a good chance I need it. I could be using that money for something else there's a good chance I need. There's only so much money, so I got to be careful with how I spend it. So here we go. We're just going to let this run, leave it alone. Don't press any keys, don't move the mouse. You've asked the system to do something, now get out of its way and let it do what you've asked it to do. It will restart when it's ready, and it will wait indefinitely for you to respond. You can go to dinner, you can go out of town for a week or two. It'll come back. When you come back, it'll just sit here patiently waiting. So now it's your turn to patiently wait for it. If you want to be successful, leave it alone. Now the system has just turned itself off. I can hear the power supply clicking. It has turned itself back on. I am still completely hands off. It may not be done yet. That's why you don't touch it. Don't make any assumption. It'll be very clear when it's done. This is live and unscripted. I have no idea what's going to happen next. Well, I have an idea, but I have no control over it. But I'm so confident in how reliable and simple this is. If you follow my simple instruction, then you won't have a problem either. Now, this might boot us into Windows. I don't know. It might shut off and restart again. That's all normal, depending on the BIOS, depending on the motherboard maker. It appears that's already done and everything's happy. How can I tell? Well, again, we have CPU-Z. We have, this is the Intel graphics software we just launched, so that comes up one time. Also, if we go back to the Intel driver assistant, which should be down here in our system tray, right here, that'll show a little red dot if there's drivers missing. And if we scroll down now, do we see 1D0 in our BIOS? Motherboard, model, version. I normally see it in here, but I guess in this case, it is not being reported the way other motherboard makers show in here. So we can check this one of two ways. I can go back into the BIOS again and look, because the BIOS shows us right on the first screen what version we have, or I can put my utilities flash drive in, and by the way, we're done with the BIOS flash drive. We're done with it, so just double click on it. We'll never need that file, that file ever again, unless you have multiple systems that are all identical or use the same motherboard. So yes, if it was a business and they had 200 machines, we would keep that till we did all the machines. Since we just have the one machine, we're done with it. We'll never need it again for the rest of our lives. If there's a newer BIOS, it won't be that one. So either way, we're done with it. I'm going to take my utilities flash drive. We're going to plug that in back here. Again, any USB port will do. And while I do have CPU-Z and Crystal Diskmark, I think these are old versions, so I'm going to delete them. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to copy CPU-Z 2.14, which is the latest version. Now you do see CCleaner on here, don't you? I don't use it. I keep it on here as like an emergency where CCleaner has like a wipe info function where you can wipe blank space on a drive for security reasons. I can't tell you the last time I've used it. I really, you know what? Honestly, I don't need it anymore. It's like I like to maintain software. So as a technician, I bring software in and then I try to keep updated, you know, like H2 test W when I have the latest version. Everything in here, I like to have the latest version. I can't always stay on top of it, but I do like to check that Crystal Diskmark Portable would be the latest version. Hardware info, all of this. I hope I'm running the latest version. And CCleaner is just a remnant from the days of yore that I would regularly update it out of habit, even though I haven't used it except to update it. So I'm going to just do myself a favor and get rid of it right now. Let's take a look at CPU-Z, and it'll report our BIOS version correctly every time, as long as you're using the latest version. We'll go to the motherboard tab, and I hope it says 1D0. Yeah, it does right there, and the date down below. So we're good. I had saved the Crystal Diskmark results of either the RAID array or the internal drive. I think this is the internal drive. I was doing drive tests. That's why ATTO was on there with the High Point RAID 4 NVMe. Is it 4 NVMe drives? I can't even remember. It's a project that got set aside. It's here in Studio C somewhere with one day hoping to get back to it. But now with Gen 5 NVMe and soon Gen 6 NVMe, this doesn't seem all impressive to go through all the effort. So time is of essence here. We run Crystal Diskmark. Again, there's nothing we're installing. It's a portable utility, and we can verify that our drive is running the way a P41 from SK Hynix should run, which is around 7,000 megabytes per second if we've installed it correctly. I'm not looking for a specific number. I'm looking for a range. We're hitting it. I'm not going to sit here and wait for this because I want to show you one final thing. Microsoft has a solution to CCleaner, and it's called PC Manager. Now you can see that's already installed on this computer, and it always wants to restore your browser and search engine. I always uncheck that. Leave me alone. Click Get Started. I'd like to go to Set Smart Boost and turn that on so it'll run automatically when it's needed in the background. Go back to the home setting. You'll see we've got 18% memory usage, 60% temp files. Hit Boost, clears all that out. It's from Microsoft. It's free. You can do the same with disk cleanup. Well, didn't you already clean up with Storage Sense? Didn't you already clean up with it? Yes, but this cleans it yet another way. So there's more stuff we can keep removing. Wouldn't it be great if there was one tool that did it all? But those are the tools that cause problems. So in any event, what if you don't have this? So let's go to our app section, and I'm going to show you how you get it. So we'll just uninstall this. It's free, and it's from Microsoft. And in my opinion, it should be a part of Windows 11. The fact that Microsoft Teams is a part of Windows 11 and PC Manager isn't is really annoying to me. Now let's go to PC Manager and let's uninstall PC Manager. Also, I'm not a people person. Let's get rid of people. All right, see how quick that stuff comes out? You don't need a debloater for 3 seconds of work. If you've got 100 machines that need 3 seconds each, different story. All right, now, with PC Manager removed, if I try to run PC Manager, instead of getting an app, I'm going to get a search result. And it says right here on the right, PC Manager, install on Windows. That's how you find it for Windows 10 or 11. Click on Install on Windows. It's going to want to open the Microsoft Store. If it asks you if it's okay, yeah, it's fine. You don't need a Microsoft account. You don't need to be signed in. Hit get, and it downloads and installs PC Manager for you. It's a pretty small application, and it'll run in your system tray. You don't even know it's there. Hit open right there, and we're right back to where I showed you. Close all this because we're done with it. Set Smart Boost, and it'll just run on its own. It remembered my setting from before. That's it. Now look, there's a lot of other options in here. If you want to play with them, you go right ahead. I don't use any of this stuff. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying I don't. But feel free to explore. This is a real tool from Microsoft that is free. If you're in Europe, the European Union needs Microsoft to qualify to some privacy thing that I don't know why Microsoft isn't doing it, but it'll say it's not available in your region. Just change your region settings. If you're not sure how to do that, how do I change my region settings? Windows 11, something like that. Oh, it's under time and language. Oh, that's why I couldn't find it the other day. Start in I. So do I have a start button? Yeah, start in I. Oh, I see what that did. Time and language. Language and region. So right here, country or region, you're not going to have United States. If it's telling you it's not available in your region, change it to the United States. Then go and get it. Once you've got it, change it back to wherever it is. Go back to the UK if you want. That's your country. That's your government that's doing that. And you don't have to install a VPN. Don't overthink it. It's real easy. If you want it, that's how you get around it. Okay? With that, we are almost at 3 hours today. And it's a little longer than I was intended on going. And we could keep going with even more maintenance. We could go through driver updates. We could take all kinds of steps to try to find other things we can fine tune that are all legit, that are all coming from the manufacturer, whether it's Intel or it's MSI, or if it's Microsoft. The main manufacturers are where we want to source our files. And then there's a handful of free utilities, literally a handful. There's not very many that I use that are mostly for information. Hardware Info is for info. Crystal Disk Mark and Crystal Disk Info are for info. CPU-Z is for info. We're not manipulating or changing the operating system. And the single exception to that was the device cleanup tool, which is super teeny tiny and not a hardcore requirement. It's more of like, hey, did you know this? It shouldn't hurt for you to run it, especially if you're looking in your device manager and you show hidden devices and you've got tons of them. You could click on each one and hit the delete key till you're clean. Or you can just do that application. That'll do all that for you. It's not instituting any new processes that go outside of the manual process. I'm okay with automated processes that follow the rules. I'm fine with that. That's essentially what my optimizer does. There's nothing unique about my optimizer that you can't do by hand. It can just do it faster than you can. And I'm running it on hundreds of computers. You may just be running it on the one. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time developing an app and testing an app or customizing an install of Windows 11 unless I'm doing that constantly. It's faster to just make a backup of what you like and restore it back, right? So depending on the scale of your operation, if you're operating on, say, 5 computers and you have to maintain those 5 computers, then, adjust accordingly. But for me to have to customize a Windows 11 installer, I must be installing Windows at least 4 times a day, or it's not worth my time to code it, test it, debug it, and update it every single time there's an update. What? I'm going to spend 4 to 8 hours doing something that takes an hour? So I could reduce that 1 hour down to 10 minutes? You have any idea before I can earn back the investment? No, thank you. Not for me. I'm not running at that scale. Chris Johnson says, informative show today. Thank you, Chris. Sorry I've not been, again, paying attention to the chat. So let me go through the chat one more time here. We'll scroll up and see how much I've missed. Katrina says she got Mara's cookbook and will be cooking soon. Gonna be making dinner using the recipes. Right on. Well, let us know what you think of those recipes, Katrina. David Ice mentions apparently it did say the version of the BIOS was 1C1. I just wasn't seeing it. That happens to me all the time. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it was in there. I just wasn't looking in the right place. Oh, I'm sorry to hear our member of our community here, Ray Burke, his wife had passed yesterday. Oof. They were together for 48 years. Wow. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I can't even imagine. But listen, I never have the right thing to say because it's one of those things. I feel like I'm almost better not saying anything than potentially offending anybody. So the only thing I can really say safely, despite what my intentions are, which of course is to empathize and it's really not a time to try and make anybody feel better. I can tell you that here in the community, we care about you, and we will try our best to distract you. And there's just nothing I can say that I feel safe saying that may be interpreted incorrectly. So I just, apart for, you know, the standard that's a deep one. You know, saying I'm sorry for your loss feels so, I don't know, but it's the safe thing. But more importantly, and the message I want to convey is we're here for you, and you're always welcome here. And the best thing I can think of to do to help is to just help to distract you. For better or for worse, that's kind of how I deal with some challenges in life. And yeah, I am so sorry to hear that. I truly am. But you have friends and family here. You're not alone. Our friend Buster, I hope he's feeling better. He wasn't feeling good for the last few days, but it sounds like he's on the mend, and hopefully maybe a couple days, if he's progressing along as it sounds like, he'll be back to 100% very soon. We're thinking of you, Buster. And yeah, hopefully each day brings with it feeling better. That's a good path to be on, by the way. As long as he's not feeling worse, we're thinking of you. Kevin wants to know, how can I do a RAM check without a USB? Well, how can I drive to the store without a car? You know what I mean? Like, there are like built-in Windows RAM testing, and some like Dell and HP computers maybe in the BIOS have a RAM test, but I don't trust those. So for me, running those tests as an alternative to memtest is not something I trust the results of. So I use a particular tool that I trust. That's memtest 86. It boots off a USB. If you wanted to go old school before memtest, what we would do is, if we had multiple RAM modules, we would pull all but one module and we would run the system and see if the problem still occurs. If the problem still occurs, we'd shut the machine off, unplug it from power. Always unplug it from power before you do any of this stuff. And we'd put one of the RAM modules back in and remove the previous module we left in. If the problem still occurs, it's not a RAM module. If the problem goes away, it's one of the RAM modules, and you just swap them out until you find the one that you can identify as causing the problem. It's a very long and painful process, and buying a $2 USB stick makes this process so much easier. A lot of people are running bad RAM and have no idea because it's somewhere higher up in the memory that they're not typically using. But there's always multiple ways, and you know, the way I do it is requires a USB. It's not optional. On the other hand, before we did that, the way I used to do it was a lot more painful, a lot more time consuming, which I just described to you. And the problem with doing it the other way is you could damage the RAM module that was otherwise working fine if you're not very careful and know what you're doing and taking them out and putting them back in with safe handling procedures and making sure the power is off. You could take a perfectly good module that you suspect might be bad and then make it bad in checking it. So just be aware of that. Some problems you just need, it's just better off take it to a professional, let the professional do it. If you don't have the tools or the experience, let somebody else who does take a look at it. Otherwise, you're rolling dice if you don't want to do it the recommended way. I just can't imagine why anybody in their right mind couldn't get a $2 flash drive. I don't get that. So I'm assuming that's why you don't want to use USB. You're going to have USB ports, so what's the problem? My guess is you don't have the drive. Well, if you don't have the tools, maybe hire somebody who does, if it really matters that much to you. That's going to be the best answer I can give you. It may not be the answer you want to hear, but you could, by doing it your way, you are potentially going to make a bad problem worse. Drives me crazy when my customers do this, by the way. I always tell my customers, the minute you have a problem, you call me. If you think you might have a problem, you call me, because it's much easier and faster to resolve it than waiting until the customer gets to a point where they can't use the computer anymore. Real life example. Lady brings me her computer, just a random person. Says, I won't start Windows anymore. It's like a pre-built Dell or HP, I don't know. I put it on the workbench, I turn it on to verify it's not booting. Sure enough, it pops up in the text on the screen says, drive 1 failure, drive 2 failure. 2 drives? Weird. So, like, what's going on here? I open it up, and there's 2 drives, and they're configured in a RAID 1 array. This customer doesn't know what a RAID is or what a RAID 0. They don't know any of this. Somebody did this. So what was happening, and I have to piece this together like I'm Sherlock Holmes. What was happening is she was getting an error message that said, drive 1 failed. Press F1 to continue. So she'd hit F1 and it would boot into Windows off of the second drive in the RAID 1 array. Problem solved. Never called anybody for help. Never even so much as called and asked a question. And she's doing this for like 18 months until drive 2 fails. Now it doesn't say F1 to continue anymore. Now she's got 2 failed drives and she brings it to me. Computer won't start anymore. Well, that's because everything is gone. Well, what do you mean everything is gone? Well, you were warned when the first drive died and you ignored it. Then you were warned constantly every time you started the computer to do something and you didn't. So as long as Windows kept loading, you kept using it. Now it's okay for a day or two that you want to finish a project and wait till the weekend. That's fine, maybe. But you just kept using it until it wouldn't start anymore. So any opportunity that we had to fix this in the last 18 months is no longer an opportunity. Now we have to start over. But what's that going to cost? Well, you need a new drive, a new install of Windows. I got to put all the drivers on, put all the Windows updates on it. But where's all my stuff? Your stuff is gone. It's gone. At this point, you brought it to me too late. You should have reached out to me much, much earlier. You've tied my hands on this. Well, what's that going to cost to get the stuff back? Well, I don't know. I don't do that. You'd have to send it to Data Recovery Services. It's probably going to run you $1,000 or more and take a couple weeks, and that's assuming it's even possible to recover it. Well, for all this money, why don't I just buy a new computer? Yeah, you can do that too. I don't sell them at that time. This was a few years back. You can buy a new computer, sure. Same end result. You're still going to come home essentially with a clean Windows. You'll need to set up your email and your printers and start over again. Sorry. I really want to help you, and I could have. This whole thing could have turned out differently if you just would have reached out sooner. So I see customers take bad problems and make them worse, either because they don't have the right tools, they don't know what they're doing, they're trying to save money, and now it's going to cost them more and take longer. At least those are the calls I get. The ones who are successful, I don't hear from. So my default is cut your losses now, get the flash drive, or take it somewhere where there are professionals that can look at it for you. That way, whatever that costs you will hopefully be less than what the potential cost is going to be down the road if mistakes are made or mishandled the hardware, or you're learning. There's a cost to that education. If you're okay with that cost, proceed forward. Or if you're okay with running a different kind of a memory test that may not be as accurate, that's your choice too. Derek wants to know if I use the Uncle Carey's Optimize tool. Use it all the time here on the channel. All the time. Let's see. Derek says, can I give him something? Well, what are you giving me in return? That's my question. I hope you're enjoying today's free content, Derek, and if that's not enough free for you, I'd be happy to barter with you for there to be a reciprocal relationship where we both benefit as part of a community. We could absolutely work with you, but if you're just here to take and grab, I'm not very motivated to help you fill your shopping bag with free stuff. You know what I mean? Like, would you? So yeah, we try to emphasize our independence here through support from our viewers. And if we give away the store, we just won't have a store anymore. But in the meantime, because we do have the support from many others, we're able to continue to finance these videos through our viewers and the generosity of our community. And we hope that you will return that if you want more. If, on the other hand, you're happy with what you're getting for free, we don't ask for anything. But when you ask us for something, I just want you to think to yourself, what can you offer in return? And that should be just a general rule of life. Just make it reciprocal. I don't think that's much to ask. But that's just how I was raised back in the 80s. And if you want that kind of response you're looking for, give me a reason. Give anybody a reason. We're glad to have you here, and you're always welcome here. Kevin says, I had a board failure not long ago, and then this started shortly after I replaced the board. I don't know what this means, so I'm not even sure I would even recommend looking at the RAM because I don't understand what the problem is. So if I were you, Kevin, and I was looking for assistance, what I would say is, hey, my system, I just replaced my board. This is the board make and model I had, and the CPU and RAM. And now this is the new board, CPU and RAM. I'm sure some of that's all the same. I don't know. You haven't told us. But ever since I did that, I'm now having this problem. What do you recommend I check? I think you'd get a lot of suggestions from our community and myself. But you've just assumed for some reason you need to check your RAM, and we don't understand why. And there could be other reasons. In fact, when you changed your board, did you reinstall Windows? Or did you carry over whatever corrupted happened to your Windows from a bad board onto a new board? Have you completely reinstalled Windows? Is it Windows 11? Did this problem occur immediately after the board was replaced, or has it been running for a few months and now suddenly it occurred? With these kind of details, we can give you a much more detailed more helpful response. But there's information you're not sharing with us, and I don't know why you're not sharing it, other it didn't occur to you. But if you do that, we can probably be much more helpful to you, because I'm not even sure that I would look at the RAM to begin with without understanding what the problem is. Derek says he's low on cash. Yeah, join the club. We're all low on cash, my friend. So basically, there's nothing in that utility you can't do by hand. So if I can't afford to go out to eat, I can stay at home and cook. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing I can't cook at home that I can't go to a restaurant. So if I'm short on cash, I'm cooking at home, right? The utility's $7. I mean, if you can't scratch together $70, this utility is the last thing in the world you need. So that's all I can say. If you have nothing to offer, but you're asking for more, I have to emphasize enough, that's not how our community works. You're always welcome here. You're a welcome part of our community. And hopefully we have a reciprocal relationship where we help one another. And that can happen in time, just naturally. But I've never seen you before. I don't know who you are. And I don't feel like I owe you anything. So I feel it's a little bit impolite to ask a complete stranger to give you things. That's just the way I was raised. I'm just telling you how I hear it. That may not be the way you intended it. But the short answer is, it's not important, it's not critical, and everything the utility does, you can do it by hand. It's nothing you need. It's a luxury item. Luxury items are for people who can afford them. I don't need a Rolls Royce. I can't afford a Rolls Royce. So guess what? I don't drive a Rolls Royce. I didn't ask them to give me one, though. I'm pretty sure I know the answer ahead of time. Charlie Purdy with a $10 super chat. Happy Easter to the community, he says. Thank you, Charlie, for your generosity and support of the channel, of course. Of course, thank you to all of our friends in green. Without them, you wouldn't even have this video to watch. So thank all of our friends in green for making these videos possible, because it ain't YouTube that's doing it, I'll tell you that. Let's see, let me check the phone right quick, make sure we're not missing anything, and that'll likely just wrap it up for today's video. One thing you'll notice, I don't defragment hard drives. I don't necessarily run the trim command on the SSD. Windows is very good about doing that themselves. Again, if you don't check it, how can you be sure? The reason I stopped checking is I never found it not working ever. And after repeatedly checking, and never, not once having an exception that the trim command wasn't automatically being run, I stopped checking. At some point, it just gets redundant, and I realize I'm wasting my time. So like for this example over here, if you wanted to check the trim command and verify what I'm telling you, that it always just works with Windows 11 or the latest updates to Windows 10, here's how you do it. We're going to go back over to the desktop, and we're going to go to screen over here. Click on the yellow folder. Right click, let's see, we'll go to this PC, right click on the C drive, go to Properties, go to Tools, and then click Optimize. And you'll see it's been 0 days since the last retrim. See, Windows is just handling it all. But if you want to, retrim it again, why not? It's there. But it's one thing I found where the automation is working unconditionally, it's always working. But if you're skeptical or you want to see it's working for yourself, it's just one command. It doesn't require any third-party utility. It's all built into Windows. Okay. These videos are live and unscripted. I did not rehearse that. I'm just telling you, that's every system I worked on in the last 2 years is auto trimming. At least the last 2 years, and that's why I don't check it anymore. It's just working. Oh, I took my glasses out so I could check the phone. Oh man, let's see what we got going on today. I don't know if I missed anything. It looks like Oh, our friend John Lewis sent $10 via PayPal. Thank you, John. Thank you for supporting the channel. John, if that's the same John Lewis, he joins us from Brazil. Oh, he's got a message in here. I have a 3-year-old 11th gen Dell notebook with an i5 113210H. That's one too many numbers. Anyway, he's got the latest BIOS drivers, Windows 11 all updated. The wife is using Chrome browser. On a Chinese sales site, it corrupted the firmware. 24 hours later, with Carey's knowledge, all is okay. The wife is happy, and thank you. China sales site, it corrupted the firmware of what? The BIOS? Now look, Dell and HP BIOSes do tend to be targeted more by hackers, but through a browser? I'd love to learn more about that, John, but I'm glad to hear you got it resolved and that somehow I helped you. I'm glad to hear that. I'm dumbfounded. That's pretty unusual. Maybe you mean like files on the hard drive got corrupted or something like that? I'd love to learn more of the details. If you want to send us an email, the email address for stuff like that is right here on your screen, showcasecreate@gmail.com. And yeah, you're not limited like with the little window and gift cards or PayPal contributions where you can put a little text. You can write an email, include pictures. It's all good. Right to that address on your screen. And we love hearing your stories and helping solve any computer technical issues we can, or pointing you to the right source where you can find the information, because we don't come up with this information on our own. We're getting it from somewhere else. Sometimes it's better to just lead you to where the well is than to bring you a pail of water. But we love being able to interact with you, and not everything is something we can deal with in the chat room. So this is a much better way to get to the nitty-gritty, the details, and then from there be able to respond. In your case, John, you obviously have it figured out. I'm just confused. But for others in there, we're needing a lot more information from you. Having that written down where we can refer back to it and being able to ask follow-up questions, best done either in our message forum, which is public, or privately through our Gmail. And you're all welcome to reach out to us at any time. And we make it a priority to ensure all of our members get priority responses. And then as time permits, we will do our best to answer everybody who emails us. So thank you for being a part of the community. Those of you who are new here, we hope you'll stick around. We're a community of kind individuals from all over the world. So if you qualify as a kind individual somewhere on this planet, you are welcome to always come back, and we never ask anything from you except for your kindness. Those who are green or contribute do so voluntarily. I consider it like a tip. It's never expected, but it's always appreciated. And no joke, without those people in green, this video that you're watching now for free would not have been made. So remember I talked about how sites omit information? If I never made this video, how would you know it didn't exist? You wouldn't. And it's because of those people that these videos not only exist, but will continue to exist tomorrow. And we certainly appreciate them more than you can possibly imagine. And we hope you appreciate them too, or you wouldn't have the video to watch. It's pretty basic stuff. Especially our friends like Buster and Mark Gaines and Luke Greenia and Frankie B and Oystein and Paul Gray and Charlie Purdy. We have so many generous underwriters to these videos that mostly go uncredited. They know who they are. And I do try to shout them out, not because they asked me to, but I am compelled to make sure people are aware of how important those members are. This isn't a telethon, and I'm not here asking you for any money. I'm explaining to you how all of this works, because YouTube advertising doesn't pay the bills, and it hasn't paid the bills a long time. It used to be you could get by off views, and the commercials that people would watch would pay the bills. That hasn't been that way for a long time. If we made $100 from commercials during YouTube videos, we now make $10. That's how far down it dropped. It's 90% less. So how do we keep going without selling out to a corporation? A corporation writing a script telling me what I'm allowed to say, A corporation that has to approve videos before I can show them to you. That's one way we could pay the bills. I don't want to make videos like that. I'd rather not make any at all. Plenty of people on YouTube do that. So understand when I tell you that I really appreciate these members and that without them, this is not hyperbole. This is the reality of today. So while we appreciate everybody as part of our community, regardless of the role they play, the video itself would not happen. So I just want to make that very clear how important that is and how much it's appreciated from me, and I hope from everybody who watches these videos, in exchange for nothing in return. So thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you to the members and contributors that allow us to keep marching forward independently and transparently. We hope the information today helped you. If it's left you confused, or if I have, if there's questions that I haven't resolved automatically, assuming what your questions are, leave it in the comments below or reach out to us in the message forums or in our email. Links for everything are in the video notes below this video. I'll make sure Mara adds a link to Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to, so you can learn more about that device cleanup, the non-present device cleanup in the device manager. He did a great job showing that off and demonstrating it. I can't do better than he already did. So I'm just going to point you to his video. And if you like his video, give him a thumbs up and a subscribe. You could do the same for us too. We won't complain. Also, our friend Doug Betts over at Live Windows Training with Doug Betts is another wonderful interactive tech community led by a working technician. So if you like videos like these, check his channel out. I think you'll enjoy it as well. Our friends over at SCD Keys, they give you guys 30% off of their prices for Office and Windows keys. If you can tell me how I can explain this discount to you is not commission-based and it's not a commercial, that this is we're looking out for our viewers. And if we can find a deal for you, we're going to tell you. How do I do that without it sounding like a commercial? I don't know. But if you want to save money on legitimate Windows and Office keys with 6 months of support built in from the site that is real, you can get the extra 30% off with our coupon code. And if you don't do it, I don't get paid any differently. I guess that's the difference. And it's really a tough concept. People are like, so why do you do that? Does it help the community? So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you all again very, very soon. And until next time, bye for now.